episode of the podcast entitled Couch Potatoes Unite! This is a podcast based on a blog of the same name because it's elementary. Why would our name change now after all this time, eh? My name is Kylie and I love TV. If you feel the same, keep listening and or checking out the blog at couchpotatoesunite.wordpress.com, as you're bound to find some common ground or something you like. For Couch Potatoes Unite, we're all about the wonders and the unique long-form storytelling of the small screen. CPU, wishes you rest from the heat and hopes you've been following releases of brand new episodes of the podcast on Wednesdays, as well as new blog entries on some Tuesdays, and as always, we have several more new episodes on the way. Because the panelists and I live lives behind our podcast, the episodes are published once per week. Subscribe to the blog or the podcast via iTunes, Stitcher Radio, and via Google Play to stay on top of brand new episodes. Episodes already published discuss a variety of shows around the water cooler, including but not limited to Game of Thrones, Stranger Things, Grimm, American Horror Story, Fuller House, How to Get Away with Murder, Gotham, Once Upon a Time, Supernatural, and the Marvel's Netflix series, including Daredevil, Jessica Jones, Luke Cage, and Iron Fist. Plus, new episodes are in the works, including revisits for Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt, New Girl, Marvel Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., The 100, Doctor Who, Orange is the New Black, The Originals, and the DCTU series panel covering Arrow, Flash, Legends of Tomorrow, and Supergirl, with an episode for each show. A final visit with our Vampire Diaries panel to say goodbye to the long-running and ending series in two-part episode. A final visit with our Broadchurch panel to say goodbye to the mystery drama from across the pond. We'll be launching a new panel covering Lemony Snicket's Unfortunate Events and Sense8. Additional episodes in our series anniversary retrospective about the Buffyverse covering Buffy the Vampire Slayer and Angel. And because we also look back at shows now past, we'll be looking back at Marvel's Agent Carter. What's more, CPU from time to time goes live. We've appeared at Comedy Outlet Mondays at Dog Story Theater and at Grand Rapids Comic-Con in Grand Rapids, Michigan, while streaming live on Facebook. More live appearances are being planned, so make sure you like us at our Facebook page, our Twitter, follow us at CPU Podcast, our Instagram at Couch Potatoes Unite, and or our Pinterest at CPU Podcast, or subscribe to the blog, our YouTube channel, our iTunes channel, our Stitcher Radio channel, or find us on Google Play. In the meantime, if you don't hear your show in this podcast format, fellow panelists and I still write reviews, and we're always seeking new panelists. So if you have any interest in joining the discussion, say hello by finding us at any one of those outlets I've mentioned. At the very least, stop by and leave us a thumbs up, comment, or review. We like feedback, as long as it's deduced and elucidated with Sherlockian ability. No sloppy detective work, please. Today we're around the water cooler and returning to a two-part series. In the second episode of that series, we're talking Season 3 and 4, or series if you're British, of international smash hit Sherlock. Series 3 of this program, which enjoys an irregular production schedule, aired from January 1st to January 12th, 2014, and Series 4 aired from January 1st to January 15, 2017, with an intervening Christmas special, The Abominable Bride, which aired on January 1st, 2016, on Public Broadcasting, or PBS, in the U.S. Sherlock airs first on the BBC in the UK. Sherlock is a crime drama television series based on Sir Arthur Conan Doyle's Sherlock Holmes detective stories and was created by Stephen Moffat and Mark Gatiss. It stars Benedict Cumberbatch as Sherlock Holmes and Martin Freeman as Dr. John Watson. The series is set in the present day. Sherlock depicts consulting detective Sherlock Holmes solving various mysteries in modern-day London, assisted by his flatmate and friend, Dr. John Watson, who has returned from military service in Afghanistan with the Royal Army Medical Corps. Although Metropolitan Police Service Detective Inspector Greg Lestrade, played by Rupert Graves, and others are at first suspicious of Holmes, over time his exceptional intellect and bold powers of observation persuade them of his value, in part through Watson's blog documenting their adventures. Holmes becomes a reluctant celebrity with the press reporting on his cases and eccentric personal life. Both ordinary people and the British government ask for his help. Although the series depicts a variety of crimes and perpetrators, Holmes' conflict with nemesis Jim Moriarty, played by Andrew Scott, is a recurring feature. Molly Hooper, who is played by Louise Brealey, a pathologist at St. Bart's Hospital, occasionally assists Holmes in his cases. Other recurring roles include Una Stubbs as Mrs. Hudson, Holmes and Watson's landlady, and series co-creator Mark Gatiss as Holmes' elder brother Mycroft. Our gamely panel of Sherlockian aficionados, including Kristen L, Nick, Hilary, Kyle, Spencer, and Kristin T, have returned and are ready to crack the case, as it were, regarding the latter two existing seasons and the Christmas special, of course, of Sherlock. So as always, it should be noted that all of our panelists have viewed the entire series to date and will discuss sensitive plot points. They really will. So for those of you who haven't watched any of Sherlock and plan to catch up at some point, listen at your own risk, as there are going to be major spoilers. Welcome back, panel. How are you?
Doing
Hi.
Great.
Are you excited to talk about these two series and the Christmas special?
Yes.
They really are. They just couldn't wait to come back together again. I have to attest to this. So what we're going to do is what we always do. We're going to take your temperature, check where you are with the Sherlock, although I doubt that it's going to change a whole lot. I'm going to read the standard CPU character question, which changes with each show we do. It's not very long. There's not a lot of characters on the show. And then we'll just kind of revisit where you are, although if you change much, I'll be shocked. Here's how it goes. Do you watch the show because you deduce that it's a show about the greatest detective ever depicted? You, in other words. How can it possibly not be entertaining, maddeningly elementary? The game is on, Mrs. Hudson, and you've committed to the pursuit of watching the show with the kind of high-level zeal such pursuits warrant, or you're socially awkward, genius-level smart, and a bit of a sociopath, so you need some kind of outlet. It can't always be noodling on the violin or experimenting with fermented body parts, like Sherlock Holmes. Do you love it despite your better judgment, and secretly or not so secretly? You find it exciting? Watching it gives you purpose you thought you had otherwise lost, even if some parts or characters can be insufferable to you, even easy to blame for some of the plot developments that slightly disappoint you, like Dr. John Watson. Do you adore it, but it's an unhealthy adoration that leaves you feeling disappointed or less than satisfied in the end? Mainly because it's one-way adoration. Of course, it always means well, like Molly Hooper. You don't always know what's going on, even when the game is on in your own house. Still, you have an affection for it, no matter how daft it may seem, like Mrs. Hudson. You see it as a necessary evil. On the one hand, it's insufferable and annoyingly pretentious. On the other hand, it's smart and helps you develop your own crime-solving skills, such as they are, like Detective Inspector Greg Lestrade. You find that it overcompensates for its shortcomings in a way that puts you off and or worries you, despite your troubled history with it. Still, you can't help looking in on it from time to time, and you've grown to tolerate it, even have some limited affection for it, like Mycroft Holmes. You hate it. Oh sure, it's smart and well written and well executed, but you're smarter and better written and better executed, at least when you're not, spoiler, imprisoned on an island. Of course, you could be a bit crazy, even psychotic, like Eurus Holmes, or you don't watch it, they're not going to answer this, you don't watch it or you don't watch it anymore because you're, spoiler, dead, like who we come to know as Mary Watson. Who would like to start?
I'm just disappointed that Jim Moriarty isn't an option.
Yeah.
He was barely a character. He died.
He was in Abominable Bride quite a bit.
Yeah. He was.
He was also in the season finale.
Yeah.
He was.
Well,
As a cameo.
well, not enough as may be the point.
Yeah.
Or in an interesting way.
I think there's going to be some thoughts on that.
There might be spicy. Who would like to start for really, though?
I'll go first.
Okay.
Kyle.
Hi, Kyle. Last time, Kyle, you were Sherlock Holmes.
And for these two seasons, most of everything I love, but there's a couple characters that bothered me.
Oh, boy.
So I think based on those descriptions, I'd be a little leaning more towards John Watson this back half.
Whoa.
Twist.
I'm absolutely 100% the same.
Who are you?
I'm Spencer.
Legitimate question, because he forgets.
Nick, you know me.
He's our token Brit.
Yes, that's
I'm a high-functioning sociopath.
That's
That actually may be true.
We should mention that last time Spencer was a combination of Sherlock and Molly.
This time I'm full on Watson.
Oh boy.
Oh.
Twist again.
I'm Kristen, or in this podcast I'll be known as Kristen L.
Correct.
So I think, was it last time I was Sherlock and Molly? Is that right? Yes.
were.
I'm still Sherlock and Molly, but I'm Molly this time because we're either on the start of a very, very long wait again, or we may be done. And that's why I'm, quote, disappointed.
Okay.
Yeah.
Welcome back, Kristen L.
I'm Hilary.
Hi, Hilary.
I'm the moderator sister and Kyle's wife.
Thank you for the dynamics.
And I would say that I'm still mostly Sherlock.
Because last time you were Molly and Sherlock.
Very much so, but The Molly part has kind of, at least in terms of her, like, totally being in love obsessively, has gone down a little bit, mostly because of season 4. Series 3 I still absolutely love, and I love The Abominable Bride. But there are a couple things about season 4 that bother me, and yes, I will be very upset if it never comes back, like heartbroken. And that's it.
Welcome back, Hilary, my sister, and Kyle's wife.
I'm Nick.
Hi, Nick.
I didn't forget.
You did. Last time you were Molly and Sherlock as well.
Yeah, I don't think that's true anymore.
Oh boy.
Sherlock, for sure, and maybe a little Watson, but more Sherlock. I don't think I have as many issues with Series 4 as I'm suspecting most people do.
He looks beat up.
He's like, question mark, what?
I notice he's positioned himself closest to the exit.
Yes, so he can run quickly if he needs to.
It's going to be like another Gotham thing, where he's just like,
Hold your ground, Nick.
I will.
Welcome back.
Thank you.
And I think that leaves me.
It does.
I'm Kristin T,
Hi, Kristin T.
and I am Spencer's wife.
Dynamics.
Married to the Brit.
A
Last
resident
time,
Anglophile.
I feel you there, fist bump.
For one particular Englishman.
Okay.
Okay.
aww.
Yeah, it's a love story.
Don't pretend like you don't like it.
Last time, Kristin T, you were merely Sherlock.
And I think I would still put myself as Sherlock for Series 3 and for The Abominable Bride.
Okay.
Series 4, I'm definitely more Dr. John Watson. And I would say that, not to scare Nick, but I would say that because even now, having rewatched the entirety of season 3 and 4, I keep trying so hard to make things make sense because it's exciting and I love it. But some of it is insufferable to me.
I love that. Sure.
Yes.
Am I the only one who liked season 4?
No, it has.
I still have to answer my. I know, but I'm just thinking. I still have to answer.
And no, because one of my all-time favorite episodes is in Series 4.
Yeah.
Good.
So, and the part of John Watson is he loves it, right?
Yeah.
I love it. So, and I, like Hilary, will also be very, very, very sad if it's done for good.
Oh, I'm going to be delivering bad news. Being that the two writers have just signed on to do a completely different take on Dracula, you're not going to see Holmes and Watson in this incarnation again. Not in any time soon.
Yeah, the
amount
way
of time
they
involved.
work, they're so deliberate.
Yeah. The amount of time involved, the amount of background, the way they write, you won't see Holmes again unless they've already written it and they're just waiting for the actors.
We'll get to that. So we're going to go to me. So
Okay.
I'm Kylie.
Hi, Kylie.
Thanks, Nick. I'm moderating and participating today. Let's hope that they both work. Last time I was Sherlock and John Watson. I am still Sherlock and John Watson. For many of the same reasons, I was Sherlock and John Watson all throughout. And Nick, I'm on your side.
Oh.
And possibly Kristen's side, depending upon that last comment. I did not feel this sort of wrath, potential wrath, against Series 4 that some people had. I do think Series 3 was better. The Abominable Bride is my most favorite episode of the entire show.
Yes.
I loved it.
So I think that for those reasons, I would still be Sherlock. Plus, you all convinced me to watch it, and now I love it, so stop trying to ram my parade. But also John Watson, because there was a little bit of weirdness in Series 4.
Just a little.
Just a little, so I acknowledge that. But
Not as bad as many other shows, though.
that's true.
Hey, we didn't rip it apart like we always do Gotham.
Gotham.
If we get there, that's going to be a sad day. Because this was a fireworks.
It's still,
spicy.
it's Sherlock.
It
Yes.
is still Sherlock.
Yes, I want to make that very clear.
And the leads
While-
are still always, they're always great.
And we had
Yeah.
all the hearts in the last podcast for this show.
Yeah,
That's true.
I want to make that very clear. I mean, even though, there's some, as you said, quote, potential wrath, I would still say that, overall, and I know we'll talk about that more, that I still love this show more than most other shows. There were just aspects on the level that Sherlock has already set its precedent that I very much wasn't expecting. But I still, to a fair degree, enjoyed those episodes. So we'll get into that more.
We will get in, and thank you for that segue, Hilary.
You're welcome.
Because we're going to start now. If you listen to the first part, or the first episode in this little 2-part series that we're doing, because Sherlock is only 3 episodes long in a series, we're just going to extensively talk about each episode. So we'll start with Series 3. So what I'd like to ask the panel to do right now is sort of curb that bubble on Series 4 for the moment.
No, I love Series 3. I'm excited to talk about it.
Okay, good, because we'll get to the other one. That's the whole point. So Series 3. In Series 3, Series 3 was a little weird because they attached the Christmas special to Series 3. There was also an online prequel episode, so I want to ask if people watch that. But the 3 main episodes of the series, or season, were The Empty Hearse, The Sign of 3, and His Last Vow. Talk about them. What'd you like? What didn't you like? You could also mention The Abominable Bride, but I kind of want to leave that.
So, do you
in
want
the
us
flow.
to talk about the series in general,
Or in
one
order?
episode?
The last time y'all kind of did a free-for-all with the general and the specific, I'm just going to let you choose, and then I'll guide you as needed.
I mean, I don't know, maybe we could do it. They have very different tones, I would think,
They do.
each episode, so it's almost like, I think more so we have to talk about them a little more separately.
More individually.
Then let's start with The Empty Hearse.
I was going to say we should talk about like the big cliffhanger from season 2,
Yeah.
Sherlock's death, and like
Right.
how did
He died?
Yeah. And all the
Quote, death,
conspiracy
unquote.
theories.
I do really like in The Empty Hearse the way that the show addresses all of the theories.
Oh,
Yes,
I was
the
just gonna
fan
say that,
theories.
yes.
I mean, that was like how many years of different fan theories before it came back on.
So
Like,
that's
you heard, like,
really-
everything.
Okay, so back up. Let's talk about the fan theories you're specifically referring to.
Well, I personally just love, I think the first fan theory, I mean, he's all James Bondy, comes blowing through the window, he like lays a big smacker on Molly and puts up his badass coat collar, that whole, I mean, just that whole, sequence is really enjoyable, even though you're like, wait a minute, are they really trying to say this happened?
Well,
But-
They hypnotized Watson.
Well, I think we need to go back and say who's telling all these theories, which is our lovely Mr. Anderson.
Right?
Yes.
I loved the way they
And
treated Anderson.
Yeah.
Anderson went from this, awful human being
like,
Who hated Sherlock.
Right.
hated him.
yeah, and threw him under the
Spending,
bus
yeah.
every moment he could.
And then during this 2-year interlude that passed, Anderson turned into this raging conspiracy theorist. His
with
whole
guilt,
yeah,
I think,
like
too.
his
Yeah.
whole apartment was covered in different pictures and the yarn connecting each different point together.
True
There was a
Sherlockian.
Yes.
there was a TARDIS on the wall in one of the theories. And a little nod to the BBC. But he's meeting with a bunch of conspiracy theorists and they're going over these theories that Hilary had mentioned.
Yes.
It's just a fan club.
And, the
It's a
fact,
fan
and
club.
at that point, Anderson had completely flipped and
Yeah.
Yeah.
essentially
He's like a
idolizes
fan.
Holmes.
He does.
Yes.
That was kind of a fun
Yeah.
aspect of
They
They
that
totally
episode.
believe he lives.
And then you see a different fan's theory that Sherlock and Moriarty
We're working
We're
together.
working
together.
together?
Yeah, they were
Weren't they in
best
love with
buds.
each other?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
they made out.
That was the
And
the gothic chick, right?
Yeah.
And everyone just basically shut it down and told
They're like, what are you talking about? She's like, what? It could happen.
I'm sure there's some slash fic online of that already.
Well, there's a lot
Yes.
There's a lot of fan art of stuff like that.
Yeah, I think I mentioned it last time.
It's very popular with
John and
Supernatural
Sherlock.
too, which
It
is
is.
weird because
That's
they're brothers.
incest.
I'm like, what?
What?
Okay.
Of course, that's for the Supernatural podcast,
Yeah.
which we do.
There was the other theory where he landed on the big air pillow and all the irregulars had set up the street scene.
Yeah.
I loved
Yeah.
how he had the irregulars staged and
Yeah.
brought into that
And then
theory.
that's what he's telling him is the real, the way it really happened.
Yeah.
I like that they
hypnotized
never
Watson.
definitively tell you.
No.
How
They
he
give
did
you
it.
these options
Well,
to
and
choose from.
I love when he starts to tell Watson exactly how he did it, and like the 13 different plans he had, and then Watson's like, I don't care how, I want to know why. Because everyone
Right.
else is just so obsessed with the like
With the how.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Everyone else wants to know how. Everyone's like, Watson, what is the deal?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah. But I do like when Sherlock, when he made his grand entrance back into John's life, it came as the waiter on a date
with a
Harry,
scribbled on
with a
mustache.
scribbled on mustache.
Oh my gosh, I
And
love
John
that.
had the real mustache, which everybody was very confused about.
Right.
And the fact that John just stood up and punched him was kind of satisfying.
Well, it's
Yeah.
weird to see Sherlock. It's not too weird to see Sherlock playing like that, but it's also like, this is how you're telling them you're not dead?
Yeah, he says to
Choices
Mycroft,
made.
"Oh, I'll just pop by," and he's like, "You sure he wants you to?" Like, and then he just happens to, wander in on, is that when he's proposing to her?
I believe
Yes.
so.
Yeah.
But still, that
I
whole
just-
sequence when he's stealing the glasses off the table, and
Well,
then
and I love
Yeah.
that sequence too, because in the first 2 seasons, you don't get a whole lot of Sherlock as the master of disguise that you get more
That's
in the
true.
stories.
Yeah.
They didn't really go into that aspect, so I like that he can just do that on the fly.
And he becomes somebody that you generally is a faceless person
Yeah.
to a lot of people.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's
Which I
someone
really
in
like that
society that
choice.
nobody
Yeah.
sees.
yeah, full-blown French wiener.
I noticed that a lot with series 3 and 4. They got into a little bit more of the other aspects of Sherlock, like the disguise, like the physical
Yeah.
ability.
His ability to fight.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Here and there were little tastes of it, which I didn't really see before.
The Empty Hearse, of course, we're talking about Sherlock coming back from the dead, but the other big introduction this season is Mary Watson. Talk about Mary. What'd you think about her?
I really like the
Yeah,
character.
I liked her too.
I liked her in season 3.
I like her character.
Yeah, I like
Okay, I'll say this. I
Yeah.
like her character when she's like with Watson. I don't like her character's backstory.
Doesn't that come later?
I think that,
Yes.
that
It's in the third
It
it
episode.
starts
started to
in the third
manifest
episode.
itself during season 3.
Which even
At
then,
the end of
it's
season
not
three,
as
right?
I didn't have as big of a problem with it in season 3 as I did
Yeah.
in season 4, which we will go into.
But I like how she challenges John, and I like how she calls him out on a lot of things. And there is that famous moment, we obviously reintroduced him with the beard, and then, Sherlock basically says, "Oh, what's up with that thing?" And then he's like, "What? Mary likes it." And he's like, "No, she doesn't." And he's like, "No, she does." And she was, and he looks over at her, and she's like, and he's like, "Oh, I really missed this." Like, getting called out on everything that's happening, and then later, he's shaving it off, and she's like, "Oh, you'll shave it for Sherlock." That became a
It's very
T-shirt.
cute.
I liked like my favorite.
I just like that they actually had her be supportive, like very
Yeah.
supportive. I'm like, it'd be very cliche to have her,
Of their
why are you
own,
running off with
yeah.
Sherlock again?
Yeah.
Well, I think maybe it's more subtext, but the kind of idea is that Sherlock needs Watson, and I feel like Mary is coming from the aspect that Watson also needs Sherlock.
Well, she knows
She
Watson
understands
needs the
that.
danger. He needs
Yeah.
the adrenaline, or he's not himself.
I love the scenes with the three of them.
I do too.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
do too.
I was just going to say that I find her chemistry equally engaging, not only between her and Martin Freeman, but her and Benedict.
I agree.
Which is saying a lot for that actress.
For the actress, yeah.
Yeah.
Coming into...
Well, but her and Martin
Martin
Freeman
Freeman
were
were
a real
together.
life,
They
a
were
real life
together.
couple.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're
Yeah.
divorced now.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they broke up during season 4
Four.
right at
Yeah.
the beginning. So.
Yeah.
Man. Yeah,
Yeah.
lots of
Yeah.
emotions
Well,
going
it's a
on.
good thing that character dies off then.
Ooh, you're getting
awkward.
in.
Well, if you've ever read Sherlock Holmes,
Spoilers!
that should be obvious.
Yeah.
It's true.
She's
Yes.
trying to keep us on track, though.
I am. Because last time
We were all over the place.
we were all over the place, and then you just said we really should go in order. They're all so different.
I did.
So.
Full blown. Otherwise, my brain might explode.
Well, I mean, and just the way they reimagined that character is good because, making her a strong modern woman to fit the modern retelling works really well.
I had no
versus-
problem with that in season 3 at all.
No.
Yeah.
I liked it.
Lots of
I-
qualifier
Yeah.
on that.
I mean, her and Sherlock were racing around London on a motorbike trying to save John from
Yeah.
the bonfire that he
Right.
was
Yes.
trapped in.
In the bottom of.
Yeah.
Which brings us to the plot of the episode. So essentially, John is kidnapped on Guy Fawkes Night because there is an organization ready to blow up the Houses of Parliament. I laugh a little just because.
On November 5th.
On
to
November
celebrate
5th.
by blowing
Very
things up
cliche,
like you
yeah.
do on July 4th.
Yeah.
And so the hearse in question is an abandoned tube car. That's where he ends up with the explosive, and Sherlock shows up and must defuse it somehow. And it's quite an interchange when he does.
Yes,
That was a very funny moment.
Oh my
Yeah.
gosh.
It's one of my favorite moments.
You're really, yeah.
Well, it's funny is like Watson's acting like in a movie bomb situation, and Sherlock's like this is real life. Like, it doesn't actually work like this.
Well, he's like, come up with something, and he's like, he literally freezes for that moment, and you're like, oh shit, maybe he really doesn't know, you feel the same way that Watson feels for just a second.
Only he's toying with him.
Yes, he is toying with
in this
him.
life or death situation, bringing that sociopath back to the forefront.
They wouldn't be Sherlock if he didn't.
Just has to mess with his damsel in distress a little bit.
Yeah.
And that's how they make up for right? That's
Yeah.
Yep.
the
That's
trick.
how they
And
get
it was just
over
an off
the-
switch.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was just enough. So
That was such
Yeah.
a
It was
brilliant.
so well played. So well played.
I generally enjoyed this whole episode just because there was a lot of action in it. I love that it was kind of, this is Spencer, don't let this go to your head. It was quintessentially British. Because we had the Guy Fawkes aspect, we had the Parliament aspect, we had the tube aspect. They were running around London the whole episode just about. But then there was heavy nods to the Conan Doyle stories.
Yeah,
So.
but with this one, because it was their first show back after their 2-year hiatus, during that 2 years, it became more popular in the States too, because that's when Netflix got it during the break. So even though it was pretty popular beforehand, it really gained its audience during the hiatus. And I think if they wouldn't have made it such a strong episode, I don't know if they would have retained their
I can
audience.
see that.
They came out with a bang!
They had to.
There was so much anticipation.
Yeah.
This was the 3-year drought you were all on about, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Those are tough 3 years.
Yeah. Was it 3?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh.
2014 to 2017.
I don't even like TV, and I was upset.
Wow, that says something.
I just went from one episode to the next.
Are you segueing?
Sure.
Anything else you want to say about the empty hearse?
I mean, we could always
I did
backtrack
love the joke about Molly's boyfriend, how she's so over Sherlock.
Oh.
Yeah.
He's completely Sherlock.
And
Yeah.
Everybody in the
Yeah.
room knows except for Molly.
Because because John has
Painful,
moved on, so
but
he's like,
good.
he goes to Molly to basically kind of fulfill
Help
that
him,
void.
yeah.
Yeah.
And so they start doing these things together, and then finally she says to him, I'm with somebody. Because, it's almost like Sherlock has appreciated everything that Molly has done. They have that sort of bond now where he used to be a little harder on her, but that's kind of gone by the wayside a little bit. So, when...
He's developed an affection.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right.
So when this Tom, he walks in, right? Is it Tom?
That
Think
sounds
so.
I think
familiar.
so.
We'll call him
He
Tom.
walks in the door and he's totally dressed like Sherlock. It's
He's got the hair, he's
the
got
hair.
scar,
And like
film.
Sherlock just
Yeah.
stops dead in his tracks and he's like looking at him. But he still let it go for Molly. He just
Yeah.
went,
Yeah.
John says, best to leave that one alone. He's like, yep. Not saying
Growing as a
anything.
person.
There's so many times in this series that the writers echo exactly what the audience is thinking through the characters, and I love that.
Yes.
Like that moment right there.
Yes, they do a really good job with that.
So the next episode in this series is The Sign of Three. Essentially, the whole episode is John and Mary getting married, and Sherlock delivering a meandering best man toast.
What else would you expect?
Yeah. I mean, they knew it was going to happen too.
Yeah.
Yes. Talking about some of the cases he solved, which backdoor kind of leads him to the case at hand, live and in person at their wedding. What'd you think about that episode?
Out of season 3, I'd say it's my favorite episode.
I love that
Just very,
episode.
very strong.
Yeah, because you have the strong chemistry between them and their history, but then the way they had all the little stories, which remind me of each little story, of the short stories.
Yep.
Then they all wove together and they all connected into the main story. It's brilliant, right?
Sherlock,
Yeah.
interviewing,
It was strong.
Sherlock interviewing people was probably my favourite part of that.
Yeah.
So funny.
So my favorite is him texting Lestrade, please help me, please.
Oh,
Like right at the
And
beginning.
so he leaves this huge raid that will make or break
Yes.
his career.
Maximum backup to 221B Baker Street, and then he shows up. And he shows up a book.
The best man speech.
Yeah,
It was great.
It's hilarious.
That was brilliant.
Yeah.
I think I agree with what Kyle was saying. Is this episode felt a lot like a love letter to the Conan Doyle stories, and that was wonderful. And but still in this universe that we love, and with these characters and connections that we love. So I really like that.
It was. I was going to agree with Kyle's observation. They were extremely well transitioned. Everything just kind of went so smoothly that you didn't even care. It was part of a meandering best man toast.
I loved the
It was
parts
great.
with the little boy as well, where the little boy's kind of got that macabre interest, so he's
Oh, yeah.
showing him like
Yeah.
dancing.
Yeah.
And then he's like kind of surprised. I'll show you. Okay. And then he shows him. He's like, kid's like, cool. Oh, okay.
And the kid had an impression on Sherlock because that same kid appears in Abominable Bride as a Victorian kid, which I thought was a beautiful touch.
Yes. And his Mind Palace.
And look at the little cameos they had in this episode. And they didn't feel distracting. Like you had Moriarty, you had Irene Adler pop up in his Mind Palace.
I love that scene.
I love that scene as well.
Well, that's the perfect way to show Irene Adler in his subconscious. Like, it wasn't like a big deal. She just shows up, and then he kind of brushes her to the side, like, not right now.
Yeah, because he's like, he's picking off all those women and trying to, like, narrow everything down, and then he's like, no, not you, not right now, go away.
What I really liked about the courtroom scene was how Mycroft was positioned as higher, and central, and important.
Organizing his thoughts if he was meandering.
Yes, yes. I thought that scene, the symbolism in that scene was very, very cool.
So good.
Like, he was the judge of everything else that Sherlock was doing, and I really appreciated the telling of that imagery.
They do that character and that relationship so well. There's so little of it in the Doyle stuff. But it seems like everything is exactly how Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, like, they extrapolated it perfect and flesh it out better. I love it.
Well, Mark Gatiss is a huge Sherlock.
Yeah,
he is.
And
he's such a great
he's
actor,
considered
but
now one of the foremost in the world. Like, he's poured over like everything you can.
That's why I get a little. There have been some people who get hard on him sometimes for some of the changes he's made, but it's like, in reality, okay, let's see you do it, because at the same time, I mean, we may have some things that bother us about it, but that would be a very difficult task to take on.
Social media too, like, he responds to all that too. Like, someone will criticize an episode about how you know nothing about Sherlock, and then he'll like pull out which story it's from, like what page, what line. He quote it from memory. And it's just hilarious.
There's always going to be purists, though, and trolls. What I think is the strong suit, and ultimately, I think why everybody's so excited talking about it here and talking about it worldwide is because there is such a devotion to the source material. It's just adapted for a new environment, and it's adapted very well. I mean, there's very little to find fault with over the course of the whole series. I know we'll get to whatever's the faults in the fourth one, but at least in terms of the overall storytelling, it's just very, very solid. The fact that they know their own continuity, they make callbacks, they foreshadow, there's connections from episode 1-1 to episode 4-3.
Unbelievable in some cases.
There's some details throughout the series that are backstory for much, much later on that are tiny, tiny little details. And when you realise, it's like an oh my god moment every time.
I really want to know what their writing process. I don't know how much Stephen Moffat contributes. I mean, do they have like a storyboard and like one of those bubble maps? As I want to be able to pick up on those details that I miss. And I said in the last part, when Sherlock's doing his deduction thing and noticing stuff, I don't even realize half of the stuff he's noticed until he's noticed it. And then it's like, oh yeah. I would like to be able to go back and maybe try to catch those. Because so much of me is engaged and totally into the story at that point that I have to just watch and not think too hard, I guess.
Well, yeah, like even when he's drunk deducing.
Yeah, drunk deducing. They happy at deducing.
Yes, well, yeah, both. But yeah, they're having their bachelorette, two-man bachelorette bachelor party.
Was that the experiment too with the?
Oh yeah, he had the tall beakers for alcohol.
Yeah, he had everything all measured out and planned out. That was great. And then the client comes up to them when they're already pretty schlossed. They go to deduce it, and there's just he's still going through all his deduction things. You're seeing everything pop up, but it's all muddled and... Oh, and I love the Sherlock theme that's all ravey kind of in the background. When they're going from bar to bar, and it's hilarious. But yeah, his deductions, one of the chair, it's egg chair city thingy, and just all those little attention to detail things.
And then he pukes on the carpet.
He pukes on the carpet.
Yeah. He was mixing some things. Not advisable.
Well, even their game they're playing, the heads up thing.
Heads up thing. Forgot about that.
That was very fun.
I like that this episode developed their relationship even more too. And just kind of brought it back to its roots.
Well, I mean, and his whole speech essentially boiled down to why their relationship, even in the books, why it works so well. Because, I mean, like I said, a lot of iterations get it wrong. they make Watson's just there for Sherlock to explain things to, which makes him seem stupid. But then he explains that, Watson is there, like, for the people. He's a man of the people, and, like, without Sherlock, like, Sherlock can rattle off all these facts all he wants, but they wouldn't be helping anybody without Watson.
Yeah, he's the narrator of the entire thing in a lot of ways.
That's what his speech was. Sherlock solves murders, John saves lives.
Yeah.
And they did.
Yeah. Good job. That's nice.
There's a character from the Sign of Three that transitioned into the next episode that I didn't expect, and it was the bridesmaid.
Yeah, I was just going to talk about her. She's the only person that can call Sherlock Sherl, I think.
and get away with it.
Get away with it.
He's just completely using her. That's the payoff on that. It's because it seemed so out of place at the time, but when it pays off, it's like, okay. He has a plan.
When just, like, I love Watson, like, when Watson realizes that he's just using her, like, because Watson, to Sherlock, it's like no big deal, it's just part of his plan, just a moving piece in his plan, and then Watson's, pretty much like, you can't do that to people.
Yeah.
Always Jiminy Cricket.
We haven't really talked about the crime that they solved during this episode either, with the soldier that kind of is the test run, and then so he can murder the guy at the wedding. That was very clever.
That villain was brilliant. I mean, just everything, how he had it all set up. I mean, even Sherlock probably would have caught on if they wouldn't happen to have come across all these pieces of his plan beforehand for it to come together.
Yeah, because he comes to the realization right in the middle of the speech. He drops the champagne glass and everything. And it's kind of fun to see him get tripped up. Because in the meantime, he's trying to be very protective of John and Mary. Like, he's even trying to thwart off her old flames and, like, so when he makes that realization, it's all that excitement as it's going. I feel like it's always got really great momentum no matter what's happening.
It should be mentioned that in this episode, Sherlock deduces that Mary is pregnant.
Yes. Because the wine suddenly tastes bad.
Yes.
Yeah.
There are other factors.
That's essentially the whole title of the episode.
Yes.
Sign of Three.
Yeah.
That's true. So we should explain it.
But I even like how it ends on that happy note. They're all dancing and happy and enjoying the reception, and then Sherlock knows that he's done his job, and he just walks away again with the collar.
Yeah.
Love that collar.
He's fond of the Irish goodbye. Which is funny.
It's okay. It works well for him.
You just love the collar.
I just love the whole thing. That's the Molly coming out right there.
Well, and he played his violin in that episode, right?
He did.
He did.
His violin.
Presence. I mean, so, like, that's everything you love.
She's nodding. She is nodding.
She has hearts for eyes right now.
Hearts. All right.
Moving on.
So that's the Sign of Three. The next episode is His Last Vow. This is when villain from the books, Charles Augustus Magnuson. That's hard.
Yeah.
He's the blackmail artist who knows the weaknesses in this telling of powerful people and blackmails Mary, who we find out in this third episode, is a former assassin for hire. In fact, Mary's not even her real name.
It's her middle name.
It's her middle name. What? And then a whole bunch of things happen as a result of that. What did you think about His Last Vow?
I thought Magnuson was a great villain.
I
I love the way they made him detestable to the nth degree. It was there was no way you could have any affinity. You wanted something nasty to happen.
And that's like in going back to the books. That's something they capture perfect because in that story he explains like he had respect. Like as bad as Moriarty was, he respects Moriarty.
Yeah.
But in the books his name's Milverton, but in this Magnuson or whatever, and just how he absolutely loathes him. Like he's the lowest of the low of criminals, and how Sherlock absolutely hates blackmailers and.
It's
they
the
captured
contrast.
him, like just how seedy this guy is.
Well, I like that they made him like a media mogul, and so he's gathering all this information through his network. We've seen Bond villains recently the same way. I like that they modernized it that way, and then the payoff in the episode's fantastic.
And that villain / actor, he had some big shoes to fill. There's already been some pretty epic villain through series 1 and 2, so it's like, okay, who is this villain going to be, and how is that going to play?
He's in the top 4 villains for me in the whole series.
Yeah.
How many villains were
there? Legitimate question.
There's always bad guys in every episode.
There's always bad
he
guys.
is one of the top memorable ones
Yes.
throughout the series, the entire
I agree with that.
show.
I like the twist of you think they modernized the character with his glasses and that he's using that.
That was beautiful.
Yeah.
The fact that it even beat Sherlock was great.
Because he thought he had him.
But
Like
no.
everybody
No.
else.
Because surprise, everything's in his mind palace.
Yeah, it's his own mind
His
palace.
own mind
Yeah.
palace.
Who knew?
Sherlock thought he had the monopoly on those. So
Yes. Honestly, it kind of convinced me that Sherlock had the monopoly on that, and then I was like, oh, yes, twisty.
But it gave him motivation to come closer to Mary and to really,
Yeah.
as an act of love, project John and Mary by killing Magnus. Because it seemed kind of out of character for him to shoot somebody in the face like that.
Yeah.
But his
again,
motivation was very pure.
we see Sherlock being motivated by love, which, though he doesn't want to admit it, is his sometimes weakness, quote unquote weakness.
Yeah.
Compassion.
Compassion.
And what I liked is they didn't turn him as like a villain. Like, yeah, he's working against Sherlock, but he doesn't really care about Sherlock
No.
or Watson or anything.
No.
He's going after the Mycroft, the big honcho.
Yeah.
I
the
know
one
none
with
of
the
that's
information and
personal.
power.
Yeah.
Which makes sense. I mean, Sherlock isn't the center of this universe. Like, I'm sure he thinks he is, but
Well, maybe he is.
Viewer, the title.
She's named after him, so...
Yeah.
I did.
But
I mean,
Right.
it just does Mycroft justice because he is so powerful, and the man behind the power.
Well, and this episode particularly, I think, brought the brothers to the forefront. I mean, you had the Christmas party because the whole Mary reveal led to
John had some betrayal feeling.
Yes.
well, because Sherlock set up Mary so that Mary would reveal her secret so John could hear it. He was standing in the background
In the
shadows.
dark. Yeah.
And they worked.
That was a very powerful moment.
That was a
Yes.
very powerful
Like, I
moment.
felt
The
like I
look
was
on
in
his
John's
face.
shoes, like
Oh.
how you would feel.
Just even the way they filmed
Filmed
that.
it was
Yes.
brilliant.
The Christmas party was fun when Molly brings the gift and Sherlock starts deducing all the way down the details behind the gift and how carefully it's wrapped and how she must really love the person it's for and just basically takes her apart
Again,
only to find out that
because she did that before.
Yeah.
Poor Molly.
Yeah.
Oh,
Unrequited love.
right. She needs to find someone else, man.
Not Tom though.
Not Tom. That's a little scary and psychological. I mean, Freud would have a field day. So, you're all speechless about this episode.
I really liked the episode. There is one thing that I, just coming from a fan of the story, the whole point of the story with Magnuson, it's one of my favorite stories because of this aspect. Sherlock knows that somebody else kills him, and he lets that person go. And Watson's flabbergasted because, he thinks of them as the law, and Sherlock's saying, like, there's a reason he didn't become a police officer, because for him it's not black and white, there are shades. And that's one of the reasons I love that story, so I would have liked if they had included something like that, but...
I think they fleshed that more out in the first episode of Series 4, in the conversations between Sherlock and Mycroft. I don't think that philosophical aspect of his decision was discussed verbally, because he just made the decision and did the action, and that was the cliffhanger. Other than him being away in the airplane.
He realized there was no other way to defeat Magnuson.
Right.
Yeah, he literally asked him like 3 times over. So really, there's no other way to get this information from you. It's all in your brain. And he said, "Yep, that's right." Okay.
Yeah, and I loved his arrogance in that scene, because you should like screaming at their TVs, wanting to know what's going on.
Before we get there, I wanted to talk a little bit about Mary, because that whole setup carries over into Series 4 and partially informs the potential wrath, I think.
She shoots Sherlock.
Yeah.
We didn't talk about that.
No.
That's kind of important. That's what I was speaking. I was seeding you for that.
I mean, not only does she have this past, but like Sherlock figures it out, and she shoots him right away.
That's her first reaction.
Yeah.
But she shoots him surgically.
Yeah.
That's true. That's true.
There was
But still, I was like, don't shoot Sherlock.
Protective.
Oh, yeah, I was totally being I totally jumped on that boat.
Yeah, it was a bit of a stunning moment.
Well, then as he's going down, he's going through all, his deducing with that, too.
Well,
and he goes into his mind palace for that.
And that really showed how quickly his mind palace works, because
Right.
before that we see it, but we don't quite get an idea of the time frame. But that you see it, and you see the slow motion of how much time he has and everything he's doing with the time
Mycroft
he has
saying,
left.
control the pain, or Molly saying, control the pain, and then he's in, the asylum room with Moriarty.
That was fun.
Yes.
Honestly, anytime Andrew Scott was on, on screen
like
in this show, it was fantastic. Now, if you go back to his very, very first appearance and you compare it to the Moriarty of the books and everything, it was a bit of a shock to the system. But boy, did it grow on you.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it did.
It really did. That psychotic sense that he has and the way he brought it to life.
That's what made him so good.
It's like,
it really did.
Yeah.
I knew he was different. I've read some of the stories but because Kyle is obsessed with it, I pretty much knew a lot about the character and whatnot, but even still, because of his charisma and the way he chose to play that role, from the first moment we started watching Sherlock, I loved him. And it hasn't stopped.
Like, the book Moriarty has inspired so many villains in pop culture and everything that now, going faithful, he would kind of just blend in with the sea of other villains.
Yeah.
Like, he had to have reinvented it, and he did it in the most brilliant, unorthodox way. Yeah.
Yeah. He immortalized it. That's a nice way to say it.
I mean, to the point where fans were outraged that he wasn't in more.
Yeah.
So since they're talking about Moriarty, we might as well talk about the cliffhanger.
Well, I was going to say, too, like, I thought it was, like, John ends up forgiving Mary for everything and basically says we can have a fresh start.
Yeah, because there was a flash drive with all of her information on it that he had.
Agra.
Thank you. And at Sherlock's parents' house, I think is where they were, which, bonus, they were played by his real parents, which was kind of a cute little nod. But John ends up throwing the flash drive into the fire, and that's when he says, fresh start.
She said, but you don't even know my name. He's like, is Mary Watson good enough for you? And she was like, yes. And he's like, then it's good enough for me. But I want you to know I'm still really pissed at you. And it's going to come out every now and then.
And it felt like she's joining their family because, like, Watson's passed before he met Sherlock.
Yeah.
You know, it's like he was reborn when he came to London. And, you know, obviously, Sherlock doesn't talk about his past before he met Watson. So it's kind of like she's joining this new... They all have their family now, and it's cemented.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Is that the first time we hear the word Redbeard? Is that part of that episode, or am I thinking of something else?
I do actually believe it's in that episode, because I just watched it.
No, didn't... No, there's one little quick reference to it in the Sign of 3... When he's getting ready for the party, he's asking Mycroft as he's coming, and he's saying, like, you know, are you okay not having friends? Do you remember Redbeard? And like, it's just a quick thing which you have no idea. Like, I didn't even notice it. I watched that like 2 times, and then I watched it again after I see season 4. I'm like, oh, they did mention a Redbeard.
Yeah.
Holy moly.
It's so smart.
I did not notice that.
To go back after seeing the very last episode and watching 3 and 4 again,
and how much
there are so many clues to what's coming.
Well, and it just seems like a throwaway line, but then it cuts to Mycroft's face after he says it, like he's gauging Sherlock's response. And like at the time, it's just they're having one of their normal little snipey conversations, but it's so important later.
One of the tests that he puts in place and administers from time to time to see how Sherlock's doing.
Wow.
So, cliffhanger.
The cliffhanger. In the cliffhanger, Mycroft shuttles Sherlock onto a jet plane. He would normally be, you know, kind of incarcerated for his whole shooting Magnuson in the head motif.
Instead, he's going on a certain death mission to Europe somewhere.
Yes, shuffling him off.
Exiled-ish.
Except for the fact that all of a sudden,
as the plane is taking off,
a recorded message of Moriarty we find out is recorded. We don't know for sure what's happening at the point.
It appears
it's broadcast across London.
Every screen.
The big screen.
Yeah, the advertising billboards.
Piccadilly Circus.
Everything.
Everywhere. In the plane.
In the taxis.
Did you miss me?
Did you miss me?
Yes. I did.
I remember her jaw, my wife's jaw hitting the floor when that popped up.
I get so fangirly. You probably are happy you don't watch it with me. Seriously. But yeah, and even still just like waiting to see the advertisements for season 4 because they kept doing that with it. The whole miss me thing. Mm-hmm. So I kept being.
And then Hilary did the same thing as everyone was doing for Sherlock for between season 2 and 3. So like all the way in that gap. How did he do it? How is he going to be back? How do you think he did it?
And that was only a year.
Yeah.
That was a normal length of time, not.
I did it both times. But either way, it was craziness.
Yeah. It did tease some excellent possibilities for the next series.
Possibilities.
Yes.
I said possibilities.
I know. I was emphasizing it.
Let's talk about the Christmas special, The Abominable Bride.
Were you going to say something? Oh.
No. I wasn't.
Okay.
This is the bridging episode between series 3 and 4. In The Abominable Bride, if you don't already know, although it's actually kind of famous, it broke some of the normal Sherlock fan base. This episode was such a big deal. Under the influence of drugs, Sherlock enters his mind palace to solve a case, and harkening back to Victorian London, which is the original setting of the Sherlock Holmes series, a bride apparently risen from the dead kills her husband, and Sherlock believes that solving this case that he's heard about or read about somewhere along the line will help him figure out if Moriarty is truly back from the dead. What did you think about The Abominable Bride?
They don't make that clear at the beginning.
No.
It's a big
No.
twist, especially when
You go in thinking it's a concept
it's a
episode.
special. Yeah,
Yes.
exactly.
Yeah, I made the mistake of showing my mom this episode, not going into it because she loved Sherlock and different PBS Sherlocks, and it was not the right episode to start with.
You still have to know the backstory.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, that's true.
I think this one was by far, I think this is my absolute favorite episode of the whole
Mine too.
Sherlock as a
So
whole.
good.
I enjoyed it
Yeah.
very, very greatly. There's so many nods to the original text,
I loved it.
the costuming, the being in London at the time of the storytelling made it
Even their own
Well, and
mannerisms.
I was going to say their manners, the way
They-
they adjusted
for the
from
period,
modern to then.
They changed to the story-based Sherlock Holmes and Dr.
Yeah.
And
John
did it
Watson.
so well.
Yeah.
And can I just say, I mean, maybe, and I don't know if you're going to get worked up by this because he loves Jeremy Brett so much, but seriously, there are times where I felt like Benedict was slightly channeling Jeremy Brett, maybe
Even
a
the
couple of the
hairstyle.
other ones. Yes,
Yeah.
and I was just like, oh my gosh, it's so good. It was gorgeous.
It was
It
the
really
cinematography
was
was
beautiful.
breathtaking.
I loved those moments where they're suddenly back in the flat set, and it's clear that it's a set, but they're looking at London, and I'm doing motions, and this is recorded audio.
She's talking with her hands.
Kristin T, the non-TV watcher, gesticulates.
and suddenly becomes aware that she's doing something.
No, but I think when we watched that the first time, I got ridiculously excited when they did that. Just the way it was staged was so cool.
And
It was.
let's talk about Mycroft in absolutely beautiful. 'Cause in the books, he is. He's a big,
Yes.
sloth-like, fat.
That doesn't
Yeah.
Doesn't
leave
leave
the
us
badges.
He solves
Yeah.
mysteries.
That's actually
across
that's only my
Yeah.
only nitpick though, because as fat as he is, I think they kind of overdid it into almost Monty Python
I think
levels.
they did that on purpose, though. I
Yeah.
think
Yeah.
it was supposed to give you a chuckle.
Well, I mean, once you,
Yeah.
I did. I
It
thought.
was Sherlock's
it-
subconscious.
well, that's what I was going to. When I
Yeah.
first saw it, and you don't know that, then I'm like, this is kind of over the top. But then you realize it's
yeah, once
It's
you
the
find
way-
out.
Once you
it's
get
not
it.
taking the steam
Yes.
out of his brother subconsciously, and then
Yes.
it works. But like as a straight adaptation, and you don't know.
It was a little meaning of pride.
He
It
has-
was.
It was.
He has his name.
It was a little Mr. Creosote.
Yeah.
Well, it makes you think in the stories, all we get from Mycroft is what Sherlock tells Watson. What if that's not even the true Mycroft from the Sir Arthur Conan Doyle stories? Like, that's just how he thinks of him,
Yeah.
or wishes him to do it.
I love it.
Interesting.
Woo!
Well,
Nice
he
analysis.
he was fat as a child. In the flashbacks that you
Yes,
see,
it's true.
Yeah.
he is fat as a
chubbier.
child.
Well, and Shock always asks and like makes jokes about him working out. You always
Yeah.
see him.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that
that's
does
true.
happen.
You see
He's
him on
like,
treadmill
yeah,
and-
he makes a comment about that.
Yeah, I really liked how they incorporated Molly
Yes.
into this one
Yes.
too, since she isn't a traditional canon character. She's brand new for this show. I really liked how they did
And it
that.
just shows so much how Sherlock sees her.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I was
it
just going to say that was the
It
beautiful
does.
thing of that is that Sherlock doesn't notice Watson's looking at her, completely understands that it's a girl.
Yeah, how
Sherlock-
obvious that she's cross-dressed with the fake mustache, just so everybody's aware.
Just
No idea. He just doesn't. She's a faceless
So
figure.
funny.
Speaking of how characters appear in this, I love Mrs. Hudson's comments about how she is only ever bringing tea.
And
Yeah.
forwarding the narrative.
Forwarding the narrative.
Yeah.
I love that. It's just
Very meta.
Yeah. There was lots of meta in that episode.
And I love the line. Give her a line. She could starve us.
I gotta rewatch that one again.
I know, it's so good.
funny.
It
So
really is
good.
a very, very fun episode.
Yeah.
One of my favorite scenes in the episode, but across all the series as well, is at the waterfall, which is a direct callback, I think, to the final problem. And it's so
Moment for
gorgeously
moment.
shot. It's
Yep.
so gorgeously
It really is.
shot.
Yeah.
It kind of took my breath away, and when I watched it, and I wished they did this simulcast in theaters, and I wished I had seen it in the theater just for that scene.
Well, I had to work, otherwise we were gonna do it.
It was just great seeing that iconic scene with those actors, because I mean, I love Jim Moriarty and that, but and I never think you'll see actual the Reichenbach Falls and them struggling. It's like, okay, I like their version of it.
And Andrew Scott also adjusted to Moriarty from the novels very well.
Yes. He did. He still had that. He still had a little bit of that.
Quality,
a little bit of that psychotic there, but it was still more period appropriate.
Yeah, still Sherlock's subconscious.
And again, we get that mind palace. The episode's an hour and a half, but in real time, that whole thing happens in 4 minutes.
Yeah,
everything,
which is so brilliant.
It really is.
Because that's another one of those small details that you're not paying attention to. You don't think that's going to happen, and then boom, it's there, and you're like, oh my gosh.
And the whole reason of the whole thing is he's trying to work out how could Moriarty have survived? The entire story, the reason he picks that case, everything about it is, okay, how could Moriarty survive shooting himself through the mouth?
Which is a brilliant nod to what fans were doing everywhere after the cliffhanger at the end of Series 3.
Mad genius, Tip top. Great.
I like how we didn't actually spoil it, of how the bride did it.
Yeah, we should talk about that.
Maybe. Should we?
I
mean, she spoiled things. She says it in her thing.
I feel like this episode is more than just the fun that we talked about. I feel like it's an amazingly powerful episode.
It really is.
It is
and the war on the street. Is it Mycroft that says it's a war I hope we lose?
All that build up, and then Watson thinking that it's this huge political thing, and then it just being women's rights, and
and it really resonates to today.
It does.
And the largest protest in history happened, and it was the Women's March, and it was just I couldn't help but think about this episode.
And they backgrounded that with Watson's kind of unknowing misogyny of that time, like like the way he treats his maid and the way he treats even his wife, and
misogyny is heavy.
He doesn't even realize he's treating them as inferior. He think it's just the world that he lives in.
Exactly. Victorian London was not known for its progressiveness.
There was some good jokes in there in that scene with the maid, though. He's like, I really have to tell you off, but I'm going to have my wife do it. That kind of stuff.
But
her just making jokes at him, and then he's like, "You're being impertinent. Like, I will have my wife talk to you."
I'm not going to do it. My wife will talk to you later.
I'll be in the whatever you call it with cigars and brandy.
The study.
The study or port. Could be port. Anyway, it was a powerful episode. Well, I was thinking of. Actually, it's Sherry. I was thinking.
Are you in your own mind palace?
I am.
Yeah. She's a drinks captain. She is.
I was thinking of Mr. Banks and Mary Poppins because it was a little bit off, but still the same time period. More Edwardian, but still the same kind of feel.
Just all the details. The sets were amazing. The costuming was amazing. Isn't he wearing Jeremy Brent's robe? Didn't you say that?
Oh yeah, in one scene he's wearing one like the whitish tan one that's like the exact one that he'd always wear in his sitting room.
Nice little nods.
It's just so pretty.
I don't know if you could, well, clearly your mom is the test. I don't think you could watch it by itself. But if you had seen the series, I think you could rewatch it 1,000,000 times by itself.
You can watch it by itself for about 3/4 of it, and then it starts explaining itself, and you're like, oh, this isn't just a standalone special. This is part of the narrative.
It's not easy to help. Like, well, this is happening because this happened.
No, you're going over 3 seasons worth of stuff.
Yeah, you really start from the beginning.
And it really, though, even just the bride story was a strong enough story on its own. It didn't need to connect.
Yeah.
Which, when I first watched it, but actually was like, I was so into the Victorian stuff that when I realized it wasn't happening, I was kind of annoyed.
Yeah,
but, it works. Especially if you watch it directly, like, watch the finale of season 3, Abominable Bride, and then those 3 episodes back to back to back, then it works better.
Our initial watching of the Abominable Bride, because we watched them all in real time for the most part, but we had a lot of peanut gallery happening, so the first time we watched the Abominable Bride, like, we liked it, but it didn't have all those emotions.
Well, we watched it with our family too, and they were like,
your family.
Yeah.
Did they listen?
They won't now.
Peanut gallery. I tell them all the time they're peanut gallery, but yeah, either way, it's one of those things. And either way, I I mean, rewatching it still, just like I said with the other seasons, I think it's good to rewatch it anyway, just because you do in fact miss the details. And then it just left a much stronger impression on me anyway. Like Kristin T was saying earlier, she's happy she went back and rewatched them. It added a lot to it that she didn't get the first time. So
yes, I just love this episode so much, though. That's really my whole commentary there. Anything else you want to say about The Abominable Bride? And or did you watch the prequel episode, Many Happy Returns?
I didn't know that was.
I didn't know it existed.
It's online. Go find it.
Okay.
It was prequel to Series 3. They put it out, I think, on the BBC website.
Well, I know what I'm doing when I get home.
yeah.
I feel like I watched it, but I don't remember.
That's
it.
what I had.
Like, I know I watched
I
it.
can't imagine it would have
recall
happened
anything.
and we would have completely
We just missed it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's like, I don't know.
What is it? Do you have a little synopsis, Kylie?
I don't have a synopsis.
Have
Well,
you
that's
watched
not
it?
an official episode of
Did
the
you watch
series.
it?
I haven't watched it.
All right.
Maybe they just didn't make it available enough.
Maybe.
Since none of us
How
heard
long
about
is it?
It's not long.
No.
It's
Like
maybe 10
minutes, yeah.
Oh, maybe I did watch that.
Yeah, I feel like we did, but I don't
Does it have
remember.
Lestrade in it? Is he?
I'm sure BBC has an official channel on YouTube, and it's probably still
I'm sure it's on
so.
our Blu-ray set, like that we own. Maybe.
Or an extra.
Probably. I never looked into that.
Yeah.
You're welcome. Let's talk about Series 4.
Quick note: it is on YouTube. If anybody
I
wants
told
to
you.
see it.
Kylie
Many
is
Happy
smart.
Returns.
All right.
Many Happy Returns. Series 4! We move on to Series 4. We only had to wait a year for this. They had to wait. I was fine.
Yeah,
There were 3 episodes in this series, as always. They were The Six Thatchers, The Lying Detective, and The Final Problem. We can talk in general, or we can start with The Six Thatchers. In this one, Sherlock follows the trail of several busts of former Prime Minister Margaret Thatcher, smashed, only to discover a link between Mary and another government agent or assassin who, as it turns out, is played by Sacha Dhawan of Iron Fist fame, part of her former assassin team who believes Mary betrayed him. The traitor is disgruntled Secretary for Parliament. We'll get to that. And then there's a whole confrontation that was previously alluded to as well. Six Thatchers, what'd you think?
One of the weaker episodes.
Yes, I find the
Yeah,
main
mixed
story
feelings.
of it is a little slower.
As a standalone episode of television, it's fine. As
Yeah.
a Sherlock episode, it's weak.
Yes.
It is weaker. For me, I thought this one was a little bit disjointed because the Six Thatchers portion of it is only a fraction of the episode and not even a majority fraction.
And it's such
It
a
really
quick
just turns
solve.
into a Mary.
Yeah.
Like,
It does.
Sherlock and Watson are incidental to this other espionage story.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I think this is where they went wrong with
Yes.
Where
They
she
took her
became-
little back, like, her backstory worked fine, I think, in the 3rd season when it was like, they didn't play it up too much, and I feel like they thought it worked, so then they played it up more, and it didn't work
I
as
think
well.
they
as
wrote
the-
themselves into
The
a
whole
corner with
vendetta
her and
thing,
had to
yeah.
find a dramatic way out.
Yeah.
And I didn't like
Yeah,
what was happening
that
with
whole
her at
vendetta
all.
thing was, to me, a little bit much.
I
Yeah.
don't
Yeah.
think we needed more from
Yeah.
Mary's backstory.
Yeah, that's what I thought. I thought we got enough out of it in Watson forgiving her and her being kind of reborn into this family. We didn't need to revisit it. I mean, I get what they were going for, like, sins of the past haunting you, but
But this was the point where Mary took over it too much for me.
Yeah.
Where
Yeah.
she became too much.
She became too big of a character.
Well,
and
that's what he said.
I was actually pleased when she died.
I was
so that's
So we
awful.
should mention, spoiler, Mary Watson does die in this episode, basically because the disgruntled secretary from Parliament, I don't remember her name, so I keep saying
Vivian Norbury.
Yeah.
There
Yes,
you go.
thank
Mrs.
you.
Norbury.
Mrs.
Yes.
Yeah, there it makes
And
sense.
there is a portion of when she shoots Mary that shows one of Sherlock's true weaknesses, his ego.
Well, and she shoots Sherlock.
Yeah,
Mary
she's
doesn't.
attempting to
Right.
shoot
Yeah.
Sherlock.
Which
Right.
seems weird for a new mother to do. Like, I know she loves Sherlock and all, but you'd think of your child first.
Well, what bothered me about that scene is you've got Sherlock Holmes, who's the greatest observational detective of all time, Mary, who's a super spy, and neither of them realise she has a gun in her purse. Even when she's fingering
when
the
she's
purse
studying to draw,
constantly.
like
Yeah.
they can
Right.
she should be able to read that from her profession. He should be able to read it from his experience.
Absolutely.
And neither of them
Neither of them see
countermeasure
it coming. Sherlock's too busy peacocking and...
Yeah.
Literally.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In response to the new mother comment, though, I think Mary is motivated by guilt.
Oh, well,
She also
probably
shot
a little bit of
Sherlock.
everything.
She also shot Sherlock. I mean,
it-
Mary is a complicated character, and that's what I think this episode hits home, whether you agree with the direction or not. I mean, because they gave the backstory that she is a spy, and that she had this secret identity that was outed in literally the previous episode, not counting the Abominable Bride. This was kind of the bookend on that. And I think that it really comes down to whether or not you like the direction that the creators took the character, because to me this was a simple follow through from that direction. I didn't mind it.
Like I said, there were parts of it that were okay. I didn't like the direction they took with the story, but the beautiful part was where she comes into the Moroccan place and Sherlock's sitting there playing a game with the kid. He gives this beautiful long-winded explanation, and then he says, "No, really, I just placed a tracker on your phone."
Yeah.
So there were elements that were very, very good, but as an overarching story, it just felt wrong.
Yeah, and just compared to the highs of the show, especially when you have the second episode of the season is so strong. My favorite, maybe overall.
I'll repeat my comment that I said to start this episode discussion. It's very disjointed. Mm-hmm. You basically have two stories that do not run concurrently. It's the Six Thatchers piece, which is Sherlock and Watson trying to solve this shattered bust problem, which doesn't really seem to matter in the larger overall.
Nope, it doesn't. Not at all.
And then there is the second, which only partially overlaps. It literally is, the bust story, and then all of a sudden you get that Agra key drive coming back into effect.
Yeah.
And then it takes up with Mary and whatever Sacha Dhawan's name was. I don't remember that either.
Because I think that's kind of where you were at. You're
AJ.
like more with this agribusiness.
Yeah. Well, it felt like when shows do those backdoor pilots where they like shoehorn this whole other show into one that works and they hope it takes off. That's what it felt like to me. It just felt very disjointed, like right at that point.
They were trying to write the story of Agra to shoot it off as a show. Yeah, I can see what you mean.
Is this the episode where John is flirting with?
Yes.
At the very end, well, a little sprinkle.
Yeah, it's sprinkled
throughout.
On the bus.
Which is part of his guilt when she dies.
I think he sees the new therapist in this episode,
does.
at least the first time, too.
He does.
Yeah,
Does
that's
he?
at the end.
Or is it
Or is it
Sherlock
the
at the
second?
end with the therapist in this first one?
Yeah, and then John sees her in the second episode.
Second episode, yeah.
How is John not insane? Like, his wife just died. How is he not?
He
Is she
thought,
dead?
He
Is she
thought
really
Sherlock
dead?
died 2 years ago.
Yeah.
That's the second episode. Are we transitioning?
I don't know.
Anything else you want to say about the Six Thatchers?
The cry of pain when Mary dies from John was very believable and very raw.
That's probably one of those things where their real life relationship really helped sell that.
Yeah. Well, and that's also a point at which he tells Sherlock, "No more. I don't want you around. I don't want to be part of this. I'm done." So it's a very powerful moment, which is another reason why I don't mind it. And I can't help wondering, I'm just going to toss this out there. I don't think it's been confirmed in the media, but by this time, Martin and Amanda had split up.
They had.
So I wonder if this
that's
was
what we're
partially
saying.
motivated by that.
I don't think so, because they're both professional. I think they would still be able to work together. But I think part of it for me, I felt like, what else can they do with Mary? What else can they do with her?
I think they wrote the character into a kind of a corner where they had to do something big.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's almost like in the books it does the same thing because he marries Mary, he marries her, and then when Sherlock comes back from the dead, she's already dead so that they can jump right back into their adventures.
Because it's always supposed to be Sherlock and Watson. It's not Sherlock and Watson.
And then you have a hard time explaining why this married husband who lives elsewhere is still there every day.
I guess, but maybe back then, but I think they set it up well in the modern context.
Yeah,
but if they're following the story, Mary is always going to die if they follow the story.
that was my point. I was like, they could have kept her on, but if they did want to keep it close to the stories, that's what they did.
I guess it's, neither here nor there, but maybe it's timing that everyone's having a problem with. Or maybe it is writing the character to a whole, but I think they had room to flesh it out because there was the whole fresh start motif that they ended with the last episode on, so...
Yeah, but I think...
But still, it was kind of a weird direction to take after that, I thought. I mean, I knew they said it was going to be... There was definitely going to be some darker feel to this last series. Like, they said that beforehand, and I knew it, but I still wasn't expecting, it was kind of a buzzkill.
It did color the entire series.
And this was definitely the jumping off point for the second and third episodes, too.
Excellent transition.
Oh, you're welcome.
So the second episode is The Lying Detective. So here In this episode, it was a very confusing but fun episode. Sherlock is largely under the influence again. Toby Jones is in it.
What is he not in?
No,
Yeah.
he's in all the things.
He's in everything.
Yep.
Especially in England, but, he's made the crossover, too. I don't even know how to set this up. I've got a paragraph. How can I be short about it? Basically, the character of the therapist, there's a ginger that flows throughout the episode.
Do you want someone, I don't know.
Yeah, somebody else I can read my paragraph. I don't want to.
You want to describe it because you have some interesting insight into who that character may have been based off of.
You're not talking about the
That's
villain,
what I was going to say. I could jump all day
You're
to the
talking
villain
about-
in the main plot, but you're talking about the
You're talking
therapist.
about the
Subplot.
therapist and the
The reveal.
pretend daughter and
Well,
all of those
because,
things, right?
spoiler, they end up all being the same person.
Right.
So I'm trying to summarize it in a way that
So she
breaks it all off.
This character appears who's kind of interweaving herself into Sherlock and John
Yes.
and around
In their
their
lives.
life.
Yep.
And first it is a pretty young lady on the bus that notices John, but we don't realise that that's intentional.
Yep.
And John starts flirting with her because she gives him the phone number. Then there is...
Well, that also arises from the discord with Mary.
Right.
He lets himself have an emotional
Yes.
connection.
Yeah.
the main villain's daughter, in quotation marks, shows up at Sherlock's flat with a case saying that, my father's a killer. And it turns out not actually to be his daughter. And then
Yeah.
you see her a third time later on as a therapist. Now, the first time I watched the episode, I had no clue
I
that it
didn't
was the same
either.
actor. The second time, it's plain as the nose on your face.
Yeah.
But
you
the first
know.
time, the actor,
But you
because
know.
you know, right.
You have context.
Right, you
Yeah.
have context. Oh dear.
She's
must have been a
also
thing
a
there.
master. of
No,
disguise.
it's in the episode. She's always in the final episode of the series.
Just about
She's always
context.
talking about context.
Context.
So
Yeah.
that you get the context, and it turns out to be the big bad that has been controlling all 4 seasons of the show, Eros, who is apparently Sherlock and Mycroft's sister.
Yeah.
With some interesting ability.
We'll get to that because we find out more about that in the third one.
Yes.
In the second episode, though, the other piece of the big bad in that episode, and the whole where the daughter of the father, Toby Jones, comes in, is that she seeds this idea that he is capable of erasing people's memories, and you see this opening scene where he's talking to almost
A group of friends.
A group of friends, but it
Powerful
almost
friends.
yeah, it looks
Yeah.
like a boardroom.
Yeah.
Well, they are the people. One of them runs a drug company. One of them's a media.
Somebody was a bank executive.
Yeah.
He likes the idea of confessing his sins to a group of powerful people that could destroy him, that are
Knowing
his
that
friends,
they never will.
They
but
never
knowing
will.
that they never will, yeah. He is probably the best villain throughout this, even in some regards better than Moriarty, the way that this played out, especially when you realise there's a connection to a real-life person in England.
Culverton Smith.
In the past and now.
And now, yeah.
Culverton Smith, I mean, in this episode and in the stories, he's in my top 3 Sherlock villains of all time. Like, this thread this is based on, The Dying Detective, is my absolute favorite Sherlock Holmes story ever.
Really?
Yes.
Okay.
It's one of the short ones, but it's written from Watson's point of view, not having any idea what Sherlock's doing until the plot twist at the end. And I just feel like they did a really great job of interpreting this one into modern settings and with the plot lines that they had already going on and making it work.
Well, I think they cast a brilliant actor. Toby Jones is this is kind of his whole shtick in the acting world. He's really good at
being
playing
creepy,
creepy
deep
and
and
unsettling and
Yes.
deeply dark, but yet somehow self-effacing because he's sort
Yeah.
of small in stature. He's got that,
Tooth thing going.
yeah, he's a toothy smile, I guess, and beady eyes, and
He played the character with such charisma.
Yeah.
he has that
And
charisma,
it's-
wherever he is.
So he based the character on somebody that when I was a child we watched all the time. His name was Jimmy Savile. He would bring disabled kids on TV and kind of give them great wishes. It was called Jim Will Fix It. And for years and years he was idolised. He was knighted by the Queen. He was Sir Jimmy Savile by the time he died. After he died, it was found out that he was one of the most abhorrent sex offenders,
Oh,
and
gosh.
worse
Wow.
than that even. he had the keys to a hospital where he could go anywhere in a hospital. This part of the story was based on that. He would do things to corpses, so that whole scene in his favourite room being the morgue was a direct page out of that story. So the modernisation there,
that's really chilling.
It really is. This is somebody.
With all those,
This is somebody who was trusted by and took advantage of the weakest and the most innocent people in our society for 40 years before it was discovered after his death.
It's almost a modern-day Jack the Ripper.
Almost.
Makes Jack the Ripper look like
nothing.
Father Christmas.
He, as far as we know, only did
so
it with
he
music.
actually based this character in part on a real life, very recent event. So it added that whole new layer.
I wish I'd have known that going
Well,
in.
and Arthur Doyle based the character up from his time. There's this famous physician who was like, he'd go around, he'd cure all these people, and he was like a celebrity for that time. And then it found out that he was poisoning these people on purpose. And then he would swoop in and be the hero, and then sometimes he'd let them die.
It's that watching the college
and then
syndrome.
like some of them he'd poison, then confess his crimes, knowing that they would die and never tell anybody.
What is that called?
And so them to update it to a modern villain who's essentially worse, but the same basic idea is so brilliant.
And this whole episode was foreshadowed in a very quick scene in season 2. Sherlock's reading a newspaper. The front page of the newspaper has a picture of a hospital, and it's talking about this hospital being refurbished, which is exactly the hospital that Culverton keeps firing the architects, so I can do what I want.
Even in the, for Sherlock weaker season, even though not necessarily this episode, they still are way more impressive than most other shows that are out there.
I've only been through the series once, and it was very fast.
I honestly feel like I could watch the whole thing again and still pick up more. I didn't.
That's what I'm saying.
Bits.
I've watched it a lot of times, and I'm still. And then he just lays that on me. I'm like, holy crap!
And now she's gonna go home tonight.
Yeah. At some point, for sure. Like this week, I just watched it, but
I know you asked at the end of, I think it was the Downton Abbey podcast, like, is this something that you would watch again? Like, is this something that in years, will it stand up to time? I think is how you said it.
That's what we always ask in a looking back.
So I can't ask it now?
You can if you want.
But I think I know the answer.
So what just happened here, Kristen?
We're not even done with the last episode.
I know!
Is that a transition
point? Are you tired, or?
No, it just seems to come from what we were talking about.
You know what? She's right.
We keep referencing, keep watching it, going back and rewatch. Oh, I've got to go check that out.
Because the bottom line is that, they're not only have there just been the 4 series and the 1 episode, but there has been those giant gaps, and yet even still we're saying, oh man, it kind of answers the question itself.
Mm-hmm. This to me though is the strongest episode of the back half of the final 2 seasons. The way that Sherlock strings along Culverton, and Culverton's doing the big ego thing, even making a commercial where he's saying to everybody in the country, "I'm a serial killer." Just beautiful. And then at the end, that payoff where he boosted my saline, and why do they always stop at 3? And all of these nice little Sherlock things. It was just probably the most impeccable episode of the entire series.
And you realize how capable Sherlock is and was, even in that drug-induced state. You realize how smart he is and how capable.
Well, because people are always giving him crap about his drug addiction. He says, no, I do what I need to do for what's at task or what's at hand. He's like, so if it becomes that serious, then I will do it. He said that in the last episode of Series 3, I think. He says to, maybe it is Mycroft on the plane. That's what he says.
Yeah, that's
right. He says that. He says, I do what I need to do.
And it shows in this episode, it shows how fast his brain works. Because it's so, when the drugs have kind of taken him over a little too much, it's so far ahead of him that he's even having to try and pull it back.
Didn't he say at one point, hold on, I have to catch up with my brain?
Yeah.
So now we segue into the final problem. And the aforementioned Eurus Holmes, who, as it turns out, is revealed at the very end of The Lying Detective, is Mycroft and Sherlock's sister, and that she's been incarcerated at Sharonford, which is, in this universe, a prison on an island. There's a lot to talk about with this episode, and I imagine it's going to be the controversial one that everybody's chomping at the bit to talk about, but Eurus is essentially drawing her two brothers into this trap, particularly Sherlock, but Mycroft is all part of the bargain.
Favoring on him, yeah.
But Watson is along for this adventure as well. And we also learn that she at least proliferated the Moriarty message. But I won't talk about yet how that happened. What did we think about the final problem?
This is my least favorite episode of the entire series.
The first time I watched this, at the end, there's a group of four of us watching it, and we all looked around, and everyone had WTF faces. Yeah. It was like, and it wasn't in a good way.
Yeah.
Correct.
We were all exceedingly disappointed. We were all mad that the big bad for the entire show turned out to be a non-canon character.
I'm still hoping it's a bad dream. I'm still hoping that somehow more.
You're hoping for a Dallas moment, and Sherlock wakes up in the shower,
or like Moriarty came up with all of it to fuck with them or something. Like that's what I know. That's what Hilary was hoping for.
Like because I cannot. If that is the case, and like they seriously never do anymore, which I swear I hope that what you just said is only partially.
We'll talk about that. I've got thoughts.
But either way, I really hope. Because it seriously sucks the wind out of...
The wind. That's,
the east wind?
The east wind?
Seriously. Out of everything about Moriarty for me. And I love that character too much for that to happen, and the actor that plays him in this series.
When they said the east wind blows, they weren't lying.
Yeah.
But in saying that, when I went back and watched it a second time, I had a deeper appreciation for the episode. It's actually a very poetic episode.
The water cooler is divided.
Are you reacting to my stress?
The water cooler is divided. I can feel it.
Because everybody's trying to talk
It's not as palpable as your Gotham stress, but...
He kept laughing about,
well, you were rambling for like 5 minutes. And so incomprehensible. None of us in the room knew what you were saying.
I will.
I'm editing that one, and that... You were meandering for 5 minutes. I
was your best man.
You didn't answer anything.
We were all just like looking at each other like, what's going on right now?
Is Hilary on drugs?
Don't mess with Batman!
Sorry, I brought it up.
And Kristen and I are like, what is going on?
Right, I got some crossover podcasting.
But still, same thing. Don't mess with Moriarty. Boom.
Okay. Spencer was saying, no, he enjoyed it more the second time.
The second time, I picked up a lot more, and I understood the episode more, because I went back and watched seasons 3 and 4, and you see the story that they told of Eros, how, she was basically plucked out of the home at a very, very young age, so while she was exceedingly intelligent, far beyond Mycroft and Sherlock, emotionally she was stunted at this little girl who just wanted to play with her little brother. She just wanted to play with Sherlock. And that's what this episode was her getting to play with her brother. Yes, she's a supremely highly functioning sociopath. Mm-hmm. So there was a beauty to the story,
that was
but the purist in me absolutely despises the fact that they did this.
Yeah, I feel the same way, but then they also made her abilities so implausible. Like, they raised her to almost supernatural level, to a point where it just wasn't believable.
She's gesturing it.
And I hate every version of Sherlock Holmes that tries to give a backstory to his abilities. Because for one, it doesn't make sense with Mycroft existing.
Well, there's also several moments in the episode where you feel like you could drive a bus through the plot holes.
Yeah. They try explaining Sherlock's need to see every little detail as him trying to find Redbeard.
Which is
but it's like, why is Mycroft like that then?
Yeah,
like I just feel like
he's just a sociopath.
Any trying to explain why Sherlock is the way he is kind of falls flat.
But doesn't it
Sherlock Holmes.
Explain why Mycroft is so concerned with Sherlock
that
he's
why
afraid
he's so concerned, but not why they both are at that. Not why they're both.
But then he's afraid he's going to turn into Eros.
I didn't say
that.
I think it's more a fact. No? I think it's more that he will remember who Redbeard is, and it will wake him.
Yeah, more than the fact that he's the protective older brother, more so than he's afraid his brother will shatter.
Yeah,
that he's much more vulnerable than Sherlock ever lets on to anybody.
But in that shattered... Okay, I feel like he's also worried that he's going to tip to the other side where he's going to be more of a villain than someone.
I see where you're getting that, because he does say at one point, you remember what happened to the other one, or something like that. I don't know.
I don't remember exactly, but that's how I felt about the character. Yes, he was making sure he didn't want to break. Yes, he cared about his brother. But I think there was also fear that he would lose him the way he lost his sister to the dark side, for lack of a better way of wording.
What Kyle was saying about Era's abilities is the thing that my brain keeps trying to make sense of so much. Like, these almost implausible abilities. How can she... Okay, yes, she can mind control people. There,
like what I said earlier is that like she's a weird mixture between like Dark Phoenix and Moriarty, like some weird combo thing.
That's an X-Men reference.
It is an X-Men reference, but that's
just in case there's no crossover audience.
But that's what it reminds me of. But yeah, it just goes too far. It's too much.
There's a line that Mycroft has where he says she correctly predicted the last 3 terrorist attacks on the British mainland after 15 minutes on Twitter. Yet they did nothing to stop them. There's so many things that just bug me about this episode. The gravestones.
I still
the gravestones still don't make sense to me.
Yeah.
Why are there nonsense gravestones?
She had nothing to do with putting them there, but there's all these nonsense gravestones that then she derives a code from, that she makes a song about, that lead to where she stashed Sherlock's best boyhood friend for him to rescue. It's just a really messy, convoluted...
And speaking of that, where are Redbeard's parents in all of this?
Yeah.
Any journalist looking up Sherlock Holmes when he comes to prominent fame is going to find this Holmes story in his background that, hey, his childhood friend disappeared.
They dig into everything else about him.
His parents didn't even care that this kid never came home,
But
apparently.
did Mycroft cover it up?
I think he said their uncle, who was essentially in the same position Mycroft took over, covered it up. But it's still...
Yeah. And just a little background for the listener, in case they've forgotten, Redbeard, Sherlock thought was their family dog.
Yeah, they always showed a red setter when he was doing his flashbacks.
And it turns out to be Sherlock's best childhood friend. They were playing pirates.
Victor.
Thank you, Victor. And he was playing a pirate called Redbeard.
And Sherlock was Yellowbeard.
That's the piece of it. Eurus, in her jealousness of...
She wanted to play with Sherlock.
As a young child.
And led this young boy to his death, to a well where he drowned.
And now Watson's the new Redbeard.
Yep.
So let's hear the other side of the water cooler. Kristen and Nick, you've been quiet. I've been purposefully quiet. Kristen L.
I haven't been quiet.
You've been asking questions. You're doing your probing
He's been kind of helping us. Yeah.
I know what Nick was doing.
I was going to say sift through our thoughts, because we're kind of all going at once.
Yeah.
He was also helping himself sift through his thoughts. So what are they?
I definitely had issues with the episode while I was watching it, but was also wrapped up in it, like trying to figure it out. It was also like a horror movie.
Yeah.
It was like a soft movie for a lot of it, which made it feel even less like an episode of Sherlock.
Yeah.
You know, choose who's going to live and die.
And then repeat.
Yeah.
That's a good way of looking at it.
So there was aspects of that were weird. Trying to understand Eros's powers. I did have issues with it, but I guess I liked it because at the end, I don't know, it felt complete. It felt like the series was over to me. And that's also why I don't mind a non-canon character. It feels like they're out of canon, so they should probably stop, in my opinion.
But having that non-canon character being the overarching villain that has pulled the strings all the way through
is not very
is just
canon-y.
And especially when it's written by somebody who has such a deep understanding.
I don't know that was the implication that she was pulling the strings all the way through.
She pretty much says that.
She says that, yeah.
She says that.
She placed Moriarty on that part.
She did. There was a flashback to like 5 years prior, and it was she had asked them to bring Moriarty to the prison, and
Moriarty didn't know Sherlock existed. She pointed Moriarty at him.
Yeah. She facilitated that whole direction.
I don't think that takes away what Moriarty did.
I agree. That's what I want to say.
Yeah, I don't think it takes away what he did, but it shows that she was starting the path.
Well, and she might have pointed Moriarty in the direction of Sherlock, because in some ways Eurus and Moriarty's genius mirrored each other. There's a romantic or a lusty aspect, I guess, to their, it was a little creepy, to their meet cute, that I'm being sarcastic, where they sort of admired each other's similarities in a very off-putting way to the viewer, which I think was deliberate on the part of the writers. I think a lot of the stuff in this episode is more deliberate than it feels, and I think that the reason why at least 4 of us, if not more, are unsettled by this episode is because I don't know if they think there's going to be more to Sherlock or not. I think there could be a little bit of, uncertainty, obviously, because Benedict and Martin are prime actors now doing their thing and involved in a lot of projects. But my gut is telling me that this is a psych out in the biggest way.
That is what I initially felt, and then everyone started talking about all these other speculations, but then I was just reading today that they just spoke with Benedict Cumberbatch again and the actors, and they said, yes, while we're busy, I will come back for Sherlock in a heartbeat.
Yeah. And in response to Spencer's earlier comment, yes, they are going to develop Dracula, but Bram Stoker only wrote the one novel, and Stephen Moffat was otherwise involved with the Doctor Who show running, which he's not going to be doing anymore. So Stephen Moffat might have, the head development on the Dracula thing. Mark Gatiss, I'm thinking, has already pre-written, or at least storyboarded.
He's clearly storyboarded before. Why would now be any different?
Exactly.
I do have one minor correction. Moriarty did know of Sherlock's existence because Mycroft, when he brings him into the office on the island, says, she's noticed you've taken an interest in my little brother.
Exactly.
So
that's true.
there was something already there, but it still feels
more
like
of a notice.
It's because they had that history. Because when Moriarty was a kid, he killed that bully in the pool, and so Sherlock, they noticed each other as kids, but then they drifted apart. And then she kind of put them back in each other's way.
Which is why I kind of take issue with the idea that she's the motivation for the whole thing. I don't think that's true. I think she had more of an influence than people are comfortable with. And the influence is quite cloudy. I mean, as Kristin T is pointing out, just what is the extent of her power? Now, there's a lot of research about super smart people having extraness. I don't know if they're actually heading that direction and going in a sci-fi way. I think it's a psych out. I really do.
Her talk when she was they showed video of her talking to the governor, or Big G, as Moriarty liked to call him.
Yeah.
When they showed her talking to him, there were lots of slight visual cues with her head. Certain words were enunciated in a certain way. It is a form of mind control.
Hypnotizing.
She was hypnotizing these people to the point where they were her slaves.
Exactly.
I didn't have a problem with that at all.
Yeah, that's what I took it as, more hypnotism.
Here's the plot holes that bother me. Getting everything from Sherringford, including a pre-made room to look like the room that Sherlock was in, to the childhood home and all of that stuff.
All the pictures of the kids as little kids when the house had been burned.
Yeah, every single employee of that prison.
Right, the time lapse there was made to it was made to feel like just a little a few minutes, and it would have taken a lot longer to organise and orchestrate and get all that to even happen.
Especially knowing how long it takes to get anywhere in England.
That's true.
I still feel with how well mapped out all of the other episodes of the series are. Why would they all of a sudden be tripping up on an episode that at the same time they're almost ramming the idea that it might be the last down your throat?
It's a little too convenient.
It's convenient. I think it's
Hope
contrived.
That's what you mean by a psych out? Like they're trying to fool us into thinking this is the last episode?
I actually had to take a time out and I had to go research who Euros was.
And I think
this is such an obscure, it's in one of the stories, it's just a really random turn of phrase, and that they just extrapolated a sister instead of a brother.
I think the line, there's an east wind coming, is from one of the stories.
Yeah.
It is.
I will say, though, for all that we're nitpicking it, for one of my favorite characters, Mycroft, this is like his strongest episode.
It is.
It is.
The interaction between the three boys in each trap is just so great. I especially love him seeming like just completely putting down Watson.
Yes.
He's doing it because he loves and respects Watson, and he's willing to die for him. But he's willing to do that without them knowing, and Sherlock just completely
Is he willing to die for Watson, or is he willing to die for the relationship that he knows Watson gives Holmes?
Yes.
I think it's probably both. I think he cares about him.
Yeah.
Yep.
That was,
I mean,
that was
that's the
definitely a
same-
strong episode.
yeah.
Part of the episode.
This was Mark Gaddis's best performance.
Yes.
I
in
think
a
so
third
too.
episode.
Yes.
Also, the scene with the three of them when they're back in the flat and they're asking, they have Mycroft sitting in the chair and they're asking him about Eros, and Mycroft wants John to leave and says this is family, and then Sherlock says John stays because this is family.
And you see that wry little smile creep into the side of
Yeah.
John's. I enjoyed lots of parts of the episode.
Oh, and like when they're at the bomb or whatever, and they're flat, and they're all, the three of them are like, talking like this is the last time they're ever going to talk to each other, and like, good luck, and they each wish each other good luck, and like that scene was great.
It was great, but at the same time, it was really dumb.
Yeah,
A drone flies in with a
it's
super
over the
special
top.
grenade.
It's
Singing.
It's great for the characters, but then the situation is ridiculous.
Yes.
Yeah.
So what I will say, because I haven't really communicated past other than what I thought, I liked this episode. I didn't hate it. I didn't love it. There are parts of it that feel forced.
Yeah.
You can definitely feel that sort of manipulation in the story, the way it's executed, the fact that it feels like a horror movie, the fact that there are these weird callbacks that never really happened aside from a couple clues in previous episodes. All of this kind of boils up in this episode, and that's actually what made me question the episode the entire time. It's like, this doesn't feel like all of the other ones before it.
That's why I think it's
So
my least favorite.
why is it like this? It's not my least favorite.
What is your least favorite?
It's either going to be the Blind Banker or the Six Thatchers. Those were my least favorite ones. I liked this one better because there was a mood, there was a setting, there was some wonderful moments and some great performances. Now you can buy the conceit or you cannot buy the conceit. At the time I suspended my disbelief. Do I love it? No, it's not. It's not going to rank in my top 5. And I liked the way they kind of put the button on it, because Sherlock finally connects with Eurus in Sharonford at the end in an emotional moment. Probably the first truly emotional moment that you ever see this character take on in this series. He actually has to break down that part of himself that's been up for so long to connect to her, to get her to back off, essentially, and stop all of the nonsense, stop the madness. So there's a lot in this episode that there is to like, and I guess where my brain is at, I'm not quite as focused on these things that caused some of you to spin out a little bit in your thoughts about it. I also am confident, not sure, but confident that this really won't be the last one. I do think we're going to be waiting a while, but it's not the last one. Mm-hmm. And I think that this was the creators toying with us a little bit. I honestly do.
I kind of feel like if we get more, it's going to be like a decade. We're going to see them in their old age. That's when we're going to revisit.
Maybe so.
Unless Kylie's right in there psyching us out, because it does feel final. And part of the feeling of final is that I feel like they were running out of canon to pull from.
Which is part of it too, but then I think that's what's gonna... I think they're planning for more. It's too popular. It's too popular. And they haven't said no. I mean, usually the BBC, probably more than American networks, is very good about saying, this is the last season.
Yeah.
They usually do it. It's done after this season. Broadchurch, they announced the last season a year before they actually broadcast it. Mm-hmm. So...
Yeah, but I think it's with this, we kind of talked about it before, it's so unique in the fact that, yeah, the main stars they have become so popular while the show has gone on, but they have such a willingness to come back and do it once they fit it into their schedule. So, like we've mentioned, I wouldn't be surprised if Mark Gaddis is in an office somewhere with a secret Sherlock board that's plotted out the next season. So that way it's ready to go once, because maybe they won't have a ton of notice when, Martin Freeman and Benedict Cumberbatch are available at the same time. But I wouldn't be surprised if they have at least an idea ready to go.
I hope so.
But if this is the end, I didn't get a chance to say my piece about this episode. I liked it. So I think I'm the only one who did, but
I liked it.
I also liked it.
I liked it. But I also
just got done speaking about it.
I liked it, and I did like the button. I liked that we kind of got a glimpse into their more immediate future with, John got to see Mary's tape, I think was at the end of this episode as well. They showed John reconnecting with his daughter because he had been pushing her away and leaving her with Mrs. Hudson and with Molly. And so we see Sherlock also interacting with her. True. We see them as what Mary refers to as her Baker Street boys. We see them still working on cases, still solving mysteries and murders, and that's how it should be. And that's how we left them.
And there's the text he sends, presumably to Irene Adler.
Yes.
Yeah, there's lots of beautiful moments in the
Yeah,
episode.
and I think my favorite one of those is the callback to the end of the first episode in the first season where Greg Lestrade, I keep tripping over my words, says, if we're lucky, someday maybe he'll be a good man. And then, Sherlock never remember his name. And then at the end of this, after he deals with his emotional issues with Eurus, then he's kind of connected to people. He can remember Greg's name. And it goes back to like he completed his journey.
Yeah, he actually calls him Greg.
Yeah.
And then Greg says,
yeah,
he's not just a great man, he's also a good one.
Yeah.
And then you've got in this episode, you have when Sherlock and John go to Mycroft's house. That whole scene was fantastic. It felt a little out of place, but it was really fun.
It was really fun.
You have Moriarty showing up at Sherringford. That was probably my favourite part of the episode until they revealed it was 5 years previously. I was like,
so unexpected.
That, I think, was maybe the biggest disappointment of the episode for me was Moriarty's not, in fact, alive.
Yeah.
Well, they played with that because they do the whole big intro and they let it do the intro and then it goes 5
years.
Yes.
There are videos all over YouTube of people watching the episode and that moment and heads exploding.
Yeah. I'm still hoping that's another psycho.
Oh, me too.
I mean, in the canon, James Moriarty has a brother named James Moriarty. Because Sherlock Holmes messed up, and he a later story, Watson mentions James Moriarty being alive, so then they had to change him. Like, oh well, he has a brother who has the same name.
Oh, that's funny.
There's also the moment where Mrs. Hudson confronts Mycroft, which he loved so much.
Yes, get out of my house, you reptile. And for the first time, you see Mycroft a little unseated.
You've never seen him look like taken aback by someone's actions before that moment where she calls him a reptile.
Honestly,
Mrs. Hudson is kind of BA.
Oh, absolutely.
Oh, absolutely.
I want her to be my
They gave her moment in the sun.
Yeah.
Watching this episode the last time, I said I liked Dispenser. I like all of it really, except for what Nick called the horror movie part. I loved the first
and that's what I would
half,
agree with,
and then the end, from when they go back to the ancestral home to the end. I loved those parts. The middle part just felt not right. It felt like it didn't belong.
Exactly, because I keep saying her abilities, but she feels like they just made her Hannibal Lecter. And so the whole episode felt like Hannibal Lecter versus Sherlock Holmes.
They even referenced it.
Saw.
Yeah.
They even referenced the Hannibal Lecter thing in...
Yeah, you did say
He
the Saw
said, have you seen Silence of the Lambs? But he said that when Sherlock's about to go in.
And Moriarty asked if there's cannibals at Sherringford.
Yeah.
And you hear a laugh.
Yeah, 3.
It's like,
It's almost like because they don't know if or when they're going to be doing more. This last episode, they were able to get all those little bits in that they wanted to do, like Mrs. Hudson telling off Mycroft and little odds and
Just in case.
Just in case.
Yeah, maybe that's the thing. I mean, of course, because it's the most recent, I haven't rewatched those as many times by far. So maybe I would feel a little differently if I do that. I don't know, but I'm basically still just hoping it's all a big psych.
Well, and also the ending, with her as a villain, it kind of feels unresolved because she essentially ends up the episode where she started in her cell. Now Sherlock knows she exists, but what was really accomplished other than his therapy?
She didn't start
Well,
the
her
episode
therapy as
herself.
Well, you know what I mean.
Yeah.
her therapy was in there as well.
Yeah.
She got to come down from the high plane of being above everybody. That was a nicely done metaphor with the plane and the little girl and him realizing that part of the story and kind of fixing her and fixing him at the same time.
And her parent, I loved the moment with with Sherlock's parents at her cell. When is she playing for them?
Yeah, her and Sherlock are playing violin together.
I thought it was a powerful episode too. I really did enjoy
That's what
it.
I don't really I need to rewatch it, and I hate it. It might have come off as I hate it, but I just felt like the like you said, the horror movie aspects just didn't fit.
That's what it was.
And that's the perfect metaphor. That's exactly what bothered me. I couldn't put it into words until you said that. What fell off?
I've seen the Saw movies a couple times. It felt just like a soft movie, which is
Well, he has too.
ridiculous.
I mean, he's a big
It's
horror fan, but still,
so
because
different
he's such a
from-
fan of Sherlock Holmes, I don't think you were
Yeah, I never
able
even-
to connect
yeah.
those two.
I'm glad I watched this episode a second time
Same.
before doing this podcast,
Which I
because
have
I would
not.
have
I might
been
appreciate
filled
it
with
more.
bitterness otherwise.
See, I think I just need to watch it more times, and maybe
and
I
then
still
we'll
don't.
record another episode.
There you go.
I just want to mention, though, that I don't think the design of the episode was accomplishment for Eurus. I think it was accomplishment for Sherlock. Sherlock goes through a psychological journey in this episode, which to me is very apparent and made very apparent by the end when he connects with his sister.
And acted very well by Benedict, especially one moment to
Indeed.
highlight is when he learns the truth about Redbeard, and he's still trying to solve this. Where's John? How do I get... But you suddenly see these tears and this just look of, how do I hold on to all of these threads when I just found out?
She killed my best friend,
Right.
and she's trying to kill my best friend again.
And her back in the cell doesn't negate, I mean, just because they had that moment doesn't negate the fact that she's dangerous.
Yeah, I mean, it's
You
still
just-
better than 90% of television.
seriously,
it's just,
yeah.
It's still...
yeah, we're just ranking it based
I would
on what
put a very
exists.
small asterisk at the last episode of season 4.
Just be
Give
careful.
yourself time to
Process.
absorb
Watch
it,
it
process
twice.
it,
Yes.
and then watch it again. And you will actually enjoy it a lot more than if you just
See.
watched it that first time and you're just sitting there going, "You sons of bitches, what did you just do to me?"
Yeah, I need to. I need to take Spencer's advice, and I mean, I
It
kind of already
fixed
done
it
the
watching
second
it a second time.
I mean, I kind of already did that, but I
Fixed.
think I need to watch it like I wasn't ever able to watch it like back to back to back in the later seasons, and now that I can do that, I think that might help a little bit too. But I'm going to take that advice. I'm not going to do it tonight, but
No.
definitely going to do it soon.
Well, and I also think that kind of informs it. The expectation around the coming season ends up being so high, and
Well,
you're
they
waiting
did it.
so long. No, I know. I'm not saying it's you. I just think that's part of it. So then maybe perhaps. I mean, I didn't watch it that way. Nick didn't watch it that way. I'm not sure how Kristen got her Sherlock again. Did you watch it?
In real
Oh,
time.
real time.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I know for myself, there wasn't this anticipation, oh my god, I was very excited. I had to wait like a month for it to come to Netflix.
Yeah, that's not the same.
It's not the
You
same.
didn't experience the
You
hardships.
don't know. You don't know what pain is.
Well, no, I don't. I guess not for this one. But at the same time, that also meant that when I walked into these 3 episodes, I wasn't at such a point like, oh my gosh, high standard is slightly less high standard. Because it's basically what you're saying. So it's way better than other shows, but it had its little misstep.
It had its blip.
It's blip. Should more episodes be made?
Yes. Oh my gosh, what's wrong?
I'm okay if they don't.
What question did I ask, viewer?
Procrastinator.
Procrastinate.
Wait, that's what I meant to say. Well, that too.
What just happened?
I was trying to call him an instigator.
Those 2 things.
No.
It was so reaction of him trying to create a reaction.
He's actually not a
I'm
procrastinator.
legitimately
I'm just
alright
joking.
if there's no more. It feels perfect.
You're wrong, apparently.
If this was
If
happening
there is
in
more,
anybody
this
else's
could be
house,
great.
we would have just kicked you out.
Well, then I'm glad I'm home.
You're becoming our Eeyore.
Yes, let's thank your wife for offering that.
I think it's got a good button. I don't think it's going to be the end. I just really don't think it's going to be the end. I think we're going to have to wait a while, but I don't think it's going to be the end.
I think that's optimism speaking.
I don't know that I'm informed the same way.
See, the boy, right, because Kyle's been saying the same thing. They're like, no.
Well, because they want to spin that Dracula series into a Frankenstein one and a bunch of different... They have a lot of other plans, so, I mean, if it does happen, it is
their own dark
far...
universe.
Pretty much.
The only way it
Good one.
happens is if they, like you said, if it is already storyboarded out, then it will happen. But the timing is going to have to be perfect. They're going to have to not be working on Dracula, and Martin and Benedict are both going to have to become available at the same time.
And
there's a lot of things that have to fall into place and already be in place for it to happen.
How do you know that's not pessimism talking?
Well, Martin,
Yeah, exactly.
Martin and Benedict, they said they're filming Marvel movies for 3 years straight. The 2 Infinity War movies back to back are 2 years each of work, and then they have Doctor Strange 2,
And I'm not
Black
saying
Panther.
it's going to be a quick turnaround.
Well, I said they might be old men.
That's right.
I mean, it'll be almost like a reunion special, so far off.
That's okay.
I think what they've done is they've set up either eventuality, to be quite honest with you. I don't think anyone knows for sure.
Probably had to.
And Benedict Cumberbatch said he'd be fine coming back as retired, grouchy beekeeper Holmes. When he's much older, he's like, if they ask me, I'll do it. But I just don't think it's anytime soon.
Well, and even Mark Gatiss has said, I don't think it's anytime soon. But I also just think this whole Dracula
Nothing they're saying is finite.
Exactly. Yeah. The BBC, A, has to actually pick up this Dracula show. B, it has to be successful. C, it has to go in a direction that would then propagate the Frankenstein and the la 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 la.
I don't think the Marvel movies are going to fall through, though, because those are still...
They may not fall through, but that doesn't necessarily mean Benedict is going to necessarily be booked for forever ad nauseum. Not
yeah, but
he
essentially is for the next 5-6 years.
Yeah, because he has to do every Avengers movie, and he has to do his solo Doctor Strange movies, and then he has to do cameos in the other movies. He signed on for 8 movies.
I understand. Again, didn't say this was going to be next year.
So could be something in between. All the other Avengers have done other movies in between their back-to-back filming.
That's right.
There are many of them. They've even done creative things on top of it. They've directed and other things. So it's all very possible. You
Denial's very strong.
You know what? So is the glass half empty.
Yeah, that's right. Hope.
Boom.
So Sister Spies went to Sister Solidarity. That's right.
Boom. Also, you have been under the radar this whole time, and
Kristen L has been flying very.
I'm okay with that.
One thing I would say to sum all of this up is that this is probably the best reimagining of an old text that I've seen in my lifetime.
I have to agree with that.
And it brought so many new readers.
Although, what do we call an old text? I guess that would be the
relatively.
Well, something so specifically classic and dated.
Yes. Yeah. Classic literature canon for sure. Mm-hmm. I mean, really, probably Benedict Cumberbatch really exploded because of it.
Yes, he did.
I mean, Martin Freeman was already obviously kind of a veteran.
He was kind of there, but this helped propel both of them.
Well, Martin Freeman now has international audience.
I was saying, he was a character actor, and now he's like a starring name.
Martin Freeman was known for the British version of The Office and a couple
he
of
was
movies.
big in the UK.
Benedict Cumberbatch I'd seen before, but didn't
know. I knew it from a few movies prior, but that was it.
I mean,
Benedict, he was getting pretty close to trying a different profession because he was getting cast in bit parts.
I'm saying, who knows if he would have ever been Doctor Strange without Sherlock? And,
he wouldn't have been.
And all these other things. So, I mean, if anything, we should be grateful just for that.
Sherlock gave him Star Trek, gave him Doctor Strange, everything he's been doing.
I mean, he's been nominated for Oscars since.
And he has a very striking look.
Mm-hmm. In case this is our last episode of CPU talking about this show, is this not ever? This is like one of the. I feel like this is the best show ever made.
Wow.
It's just so well in every aspect.
Even above the X-Files?
I might enjoy watching the X-Files more, but I feel like this is
the quality
of the perfection of a piece of...
Oh, Sophie's choice. Hilary?
No, the X-Files is still more important to me, but if I'm putting them on, like, if I had to pick, like, a top, I don't know, 5 or 10 or whatever... Sure, I mean...
it's the show you rewatch the most. You rewatch it every month.
Well, but...
It's easier to rewatch
this one. Yeah, and I was going to say, and I've already watched the X-Files 100 times.
The X-Files.
Yeah, and I've already... Yes.
I think this is more layered. There's more depth.
Yeah.
There's threads that go all the way from the very first episode to the very last. That every time you watch it,
the rewatchability is almost endless in this show. Almost.
Right, and I guess I'm asking even less of an emotional level, because there's shows that I would probably put higher than Sherlock in that aspect, but I feel like Sherlock is... every single episode is the closest to flawless from acting, cinematography, writing, every single aspect. There's some clunkers in the X-Files, so that's, I guess, where I'm coming from with that. I was just wondering where everyone else was on it.
It's in my top 5.
Yeah, it's in my top 5, easily.
Okay, I'll go with that.
one of my favorites.
Your top
ever.
two?
And she doesn't
probably.
even watch TV.
I'm the only
She doesn't watch TV. Downton Abbey and Sherlock, that's it.
No, The Crown.
Oh, The Crown,
Oh,
yeah.
she told
So
I hope
awkward.
this is not controversial, but I have to rewatch it again before I can say
No, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Especially because of all the other little details that you'll be able to pick out
Yeah.
that tie it all together so well.
Well, yeah, when we had this discussion, it already illuminated other things for me, for sure.
Well, and when I think about my all-time favorites, it's usually because they stand the test of time. I have a personal connection to them. There's something that I can pull out no matter the mood. And I just don't feel like I have reached that with Sherlock just because I've only watched it the one time through.
So new
And fairly
still to you.
recent.
It's fairly new. There's a lot of layers, as someone else pointed out, and some of that with my other shows that are my favorite, like the shows that are my favorite that come to my mind, the X-Files being one of them, are ones that I have watched
Those
and
are different
rewatched and
tones, too.
rewatched. And
Yeah.
it's different. Yeah, they're different genres.
There's everything.
So it's hard for me to go apples to apples and say, yes, it's my top 5, but that doesn't mean that it wouldn't be later on.
Okay.
Also,
That makes sense.
I like Sherlock Holmes. I'm not Kyle level love of Sherlock Holmes. That's
Not
a
wearing his hat.
He's not wearing
I
his
thought about
deerstalker.
it.
We've had an interesting weekend.
Yeah.
Weren't worried about the hat today.
So that's kind of where I'm at. But, I'm hopeful this won't be our last Sherlock CPU gathering. Otherwise, I would have taken all of your pictures. Because I usually do that now with the last episode. That's a thing I've started. I didn't have my crap together for Downton Abbey. So
Not that we can't still go back and take one.
we could.
They're making a movie.
See?
Yay!
How did you not know that?
I mean, I did, but connections. That's fine.
We
Wow.
can't talk about that. This is a TV blog.
But it's related to a TV show,
Yeah,
like
we
when we
talked
talked
about
about the X-Files.
6 seasons in a movie, people.
He was literally just trying to poke you, and you totally,
You
There's so much going on, overstimulated.
Trigger.
she literally did her, squunchy face at you.
I knew it was a joke, so I was like,
Beady
back to the
eyes.
corner.
Oh, man.
Well, with all of that said, then what I would like to do is thank Hilary, Kyle, Kristen L, Spencer, Kristin T, and Nick for joining me once again to talk about Sherlock Series 3 and 4. Now what I'm going to do is read the little statement. The little statement, which goes like this. CPU is produced by Back Pocket Productions, run by yours truly, the Chief Couch Potato, and hails from Grand Rapids, Michigan. Please, if you like what you hear, take the time to rate us on iTunes, Stitcher Radio, or Google Play. Please give us stars or a comment or review. That way we know how we're doing. And do you like the Sherlock episodes? Tell us and we'll tell them. I don't know how this is going to work. I don't even know what I'm saying. If you have suggestions on shows we might consider, contact us at our website, couchpotatoesunite.wordpress.com, by email at couchpotatoesunitepodcast@gmail.com, or via Facebook and Twitter. Though we're adding new and old shows to chat about around the water cooler all the time. As always, we have several more new episodes coming down the pike. I list them all out in the introduction. Make sure you subscribe to the blog, any one of our channels or social media accounts, and stay up on the new events and episodes coming your way. You can find old CPU episodes by searching the web. You can come to our website. We're just everywhere. If you want to watch Sherlock, Netflix should give us money, but it's all available on Netflix. You can watch the entire thing to your heart's content, including some extras. They have extras from season 3 on Netflix. So if you want to revisit, find that little red icon. As for CPU's panel covering Sherlock, we're kind of done for now. We're going to go on hiatus with Sherlock because they haven't really canceled yet. If they ever come back, we'll come back. That's how this will work. So until that time, and until next time in our next episode, keep listening, keep watching, stay tuned.
Bye-bye.